wouldn't call him a liar.
You got it, Ann. Thank you very much for this question. Coming in from Made by Jim Bob says, Jen, optimization of shape assumes teleological position. What is the purpose of the Earth and what is it optimizing? And you might want to define teleological in case anyone's new to that.
Teleological.
Like, I think they mean purposeful. Like there was a purpose or design behind it.
Ah, I see. The oft-touted non-problem of design. I would refer you to the least action principle. Fairly strong assertion in physics, difficult to interpret, but quite valuable. It's usually one of those things where we look back, it's like, oh, the models that worked really well, they abided by the least action principles, so we're going to stick with that. Thanks for your question.
This one coming from Ilset.
Where you live.
Yep.
You got it. And thank you very much for your question. Coming in from Quick Lemon says, this is for Jen. I watched your previous debate with Mark, but with this Ligma stuff, are you the greatest troll of all time? Have we been rickrolled?
If I am, thank you. That does still not make me the best scientist alive at this time. Thank you very much.
This one coming in from
Pictures actually are not really Earth curvature. That was our point.
Yeah.
You got it, Ann. This one coming in from Quick Lemon says, this goes to both Mark and Jen. Please explain the universe in under 30 seconds. My guess is the most realistic answer will be the most concise.
This is set up. So I think that Big Bang cosmology, the rapid expansion of the universe, we can prove this via redshift. What caused it, we don't know. I guess that's under 30 seconds. I'll leave it to Jen. Can you make the 30 seconds, Jen?
Yeah, but just look forward in the dangers of E-personality. If he's an introvert, incel or whatever, and when he comes out on the internet, he has this, like the dark side of his subconscious becomes conscious. I mean, to me, it's obvious. It's what happens. It's what's happening to you on the same way. But your unconscious, your subconscious is different than Gandalf's subconscious.
Logic and science dictate that not only consciousness doesn't exist, consciousness is in fact scientifically impossible. And yes, it is going to involve math and calculus and science and computer programming. I'm sorry. And that have different implications of the process with the connection between the levels of a person's soul and how it reincarnates.
But I'm not going to spur on the issue because I'm not a woman. It's not my issue.
About how one day you're going to fulfill the Canadian dream or the American dream. So you watch Seinfeld and say, I could do it. And I'm going to go out tomorrow and go to work and have a great day and I'm going to be successful. And one day I'm going to have my own apartment. I'm going to have my own parties with my own friends over. And I'm going to have my own possessions. I'm going to see things that I want and just buy them.
Yeah, but that's just so to say, a worthless opinion of yours.
Hello and welcome back to Week in Review with the one and only Doooovid. Thanks so much everyone for joining us this evening. Looking forward to the show after a super fun week. I'll hand it over to you, Doooovid, for the introductions. Thank you so much for being here with us this evening.
Hey, good to be back. Yeah, Jennifer, welcome. Guess a full action-packed week of a lot of streaming, and so hopefully we'll have a little to talk to about. But we'll see. Maybe it was almost even counterclimactic, all the streaming. I had a pretty big week. I was on with Adam Green on Thursday, and it was just an hour, and it went pretty good. Relatively, I think. Adam, I think, was happy with me, even though I was disagreeing with him. And, the comments seemed relatively friendly towards me. So I think he said he's going to have me back next Thursday, and we're going to continue the conversation about the historic Jesus. The historic Jesus is one of the topics I would like to get more into, like theology-based. So if anyone saw that, we could get into that. Jennifer came on afterwards and had a Thursday night debate prep. Mark came on in preparation for her flat Earth debate, which we'll be talking about quite a bit. But I also went over a little bit some thoughts on the historical Jesus from a multiple truth hypothesis perspective, which I was supposed to go over with Adam. That's like I messaged him about, but he kind of just did his his like preparation and his hitting me with biblical verses and various things. And so I'm trying to get him to take a more abstract level. Claire Caw has her Coronarial going on. So I'll share some links. So I have a chant. So let me go straight into a screen share just because I already opened these up so I could close these off of my desktop. And I created a song. I sang it on Zobitas today. Like I'm not sure I ever did that before, but I had like inspiration, like a whole song. I literally wrote a whole song about Zobita with like a chorus and verses. And I might, in the process of actually even writing a song about Church of Entropy. So hopefully we'll discuss that. So if you want to give me full screen, and I'll do my links real quick. There's not that many this week. So if you got that ready, I'll start my links. We'll get those out of the way. Okay, so I appeared Friday on a stream with Chris, who was on last week. So I was on his patriotic talk in the UK with a few people, and I mean Chris was relatively cordial, but it was kind of like straight counter-Semitism. And I think he put on YouTube, but he had to take it down. So Ralph actually did a commentary, and so I'll share that. And he went like 10 hours. Like I guess he played the video, gave his commentary, and then he had his usual crew, including Mossad and the Juminati, as he puts, a review of Masterclass by Doooovid on how to debate low-quality anti-Semites while not breaking a sweat. And I mean, I guess that's how you could classify it, but I'm not sure if they were exactly, but it was kind of old school, maybe like Luke Ford people with pretty counter-Semitic questions, debating Hasidic Jew Doovid. But Chris, who was on last week, so I did that. I'm not sure if he has it available, but you could see Ralph's commentary on it. So I guess that has 1,600 views. With the interesting Crucible, the I guess sister channel to Politically Provoked. I watched. If you want to talk more about Politically Provoked, like I saw their history and kind of where they're going. So tomorrow they have Adam Green, who I booked, and Crucible. I guess the guy Big Papa Fascist got his start debating against Politically Provoked, and then opened his YouTube channel. I ended up finding this with I ended up finding the Crucible before I found Politically Provoked. I'm just seeing Andrew Yang in the corner here. So James from Modern Day Debate will be on the Crucible tomorrow at 5:15. So check that out. I just noticed in the link that it looks like Andrew Yang had on Brett and Heather Weinstein. So I'll share that also. So I just noticed it because it popped up in the link. So I'll definitely. Did you see that Andrew Yang and Brett Weinstein interview from this week? So I guess Jennifer's muted, so I'll keep on going. Here was something cute.
Sorry, I'm just like away from my keyboard. I saw it for like 1 second. I was like, oh my god, is this the plot of Veep? Click. Thanks. BRB.
So I'll probably end up watching that, but I just noticed that now. So there's some of the most popular chess streamers in the world, these female chess streamers, the Botez sisters. And one of them I think is like a master, one of them's an expert. And they stream together, these two sisters. And so the world championship, Magnus Carlsen won. And so she was there. and she asked a question, and I mean, like I guess she had her own theory of why she did it, but she asked, how does the knight move, which is just the basic, it's the world championship play, and asked like just a basic simple question how the piece moves. And it's interesting that Magnus Carlsen just simply answered it, and I guess so he's a good ambassador for the game. And I mentioned that he didn't seem to be upset, and he just simply gave an answer like this is how the knight moves, kind of like an L. So I thought that was interesting. A lot of people were complaining, even Nakamura, who was saying like, no, this is a world championship. You can't ask such a simple question like that. But I mentioned I think last week and many weeks that if you like doing it, if you have passion for something, you don't mind asking basic, simple questions. So I thought that was kind of telling that Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, didn't mind answering the most basic question. And I said that like I mentioned that on maybe Week in Review last week on some stream. Like I don't mind repeating myself, like things that I have passion for, Judaism, basic Dharma, being a good citizen, civics. I'll repeat myself to people who know very little, like giving directions. Consider basic Dharma and civic duty. So I thought that was telling that the world champion, who just won again, was like no sweat. He didn't mind answering that simple question. And the other people were complaining. Yeah, I've been sharing this channel a few times. Yannick Kilcher, who does these artificial intelligence, machine learning papers explained. So I guess he's now got a Week in Review news. And it's, I guess, kind of funny. He did like an interview of himself where he goes like to a live interview, and then it's him. Maybe even has here like the dual picture. But yeah, he's explaining some stuff. And I guess now they have DeepMind, the same program of the chess program, is trying to tackle basic math problems. And I guess there's certain patterns or math where the computer could actually figure out patterns in terms of equations of new ways of showing identities or different things. So give that a check out, Jennifer. Check that out. Also, we could talk about that more. Here, Brundlefly was on Claire Call's Chronicule. I guess she had OV. I watched Claire Call. I guess she also has this new woman, Tiffany, and Elliot Blatt was on earlier today. He's even got his camera on. It looks like maybe he put on a little bit of weight. But earlier today, Elliot Blatt. So I popped on Luke Ford last night also for a few minutes in Australia, and we were talking about how we might resettle in Sydney, and just some randoms, kind of personable. Not too many people watching. It looks like he privated the video for his subs only, and Elliot was there. So people, and we mentioned a little bit Elliot, Church of Entropy, and various things on Luke Ford, although you have to be a member to see that. But check out Elliot on Claire Call if that interests you. Arjun was on Capturing Christianity about reincarnation. And he said he saw a modern day debate, Arjun's debate on reincarnation, and he found it interesting, and he didn't know that there was any reasonable evidence for reincarnation. So he invited him to debate Seth Hart, who I guess has been also on Arjun's Theology Unleashed and is Catholic. I think they're Catholic or Christian of some sort. And he was arguing against reincarnation. So it was an interesting conversation, but good to see reincarnation coming up. And, I should be on Theology Unleashed. Let me share that now. Get that link ready. So I will be on Theology Unleashed, assuming that there's not another scheduling error on Sunday at 1 p.m. So next week, Sunday, 1 p.m. will be me and Ben Watkins finally doing that. So I'll be looking forward. Hopefully that'll be a good conversation. So here's the Thursday night debate prep. And maybe we'll go over this chart I made about the historic Jesus later, also, if that's interesting, and kind of as a version of multiple truth hypothesis. But I spent a good like 15 minutes going over. And then Jennifer came over, and Zabita was on my stream. And I think actually my diagram, like that I made, this thing here about the vanishing point, may have actually been better than like if you would use something like this. But we'll talk about your debate. Here is something from in the National Library of Israel on Isaac Newton. I've been focusing a lot on Leibniz and his monology. So Newton was a spiritualist and had a bunch of ideas. He also knew a little bit of Hebrew, although he's not as interesting to me because Leibniz focuses on monology and the Epicurean trilemma and various things at a more interesting level than Newton kind of has, like alchemy and biblical stuff. Newton even wrote a book about King Solomon's temple. So just thought I'd share that. University of California, a video about autism research and neurology. So it's usually following the University of California TV. Here's a pretty good one. I shared this even in Jennifer's Discord. I've shared this channel before, the Domain of Science, where he does these maps trying to show the complete picture of the subfield. So here's the map of quantum computing, and he goes through these one by one. So it's a 30-some minute video, and he goes through the various components of quantum computing, the fields of quantum computing, the technological implications of quantum computing. Did you have a chance to look at that one?
Sorry, I wanted to. I just didn't have time. I've been so busy this week.
Okay, so definitely recommend people to check that one out, the Domain of Science breakdown. So the Michigan Daily, the University of Michigan paper, had their annual, God forbid, sex survey. And it's funny, Claire was on Politically Provoked. I mentioned the beta trade, and Claire actually gave a pretty good description of incels, although she didn't seem to catch the beta trade, saying that female streamers could acquire a significant amount of beta orbiters, that follow the streams, and then to trade them. That I think I actually joked about Elliot.
Are you seriously saying she didn't understand this notion?
I asked the question in the chat. So Brittany asked the question, like, what's the beta trade? And so, like, she maybe just on the spot, she didn't remember. But I was saying that Brittany has probably more betas than you or Claire. And she's got those blue eyes too, and she wears provocative clothing. So she's got a whole bunch of betas. And so, I was telling her she should trade some of her betas to Claire. And
yeah,
so
because Claire's just so easy to orbit.
Well, whatever, if it's a sentence or whatever. But yeah, I think that Brittany and Claire will probably be trading betas. So we'll see about that. Like, so here is God forbid, the survey, University of Michigan sexuality, where you got 70% heterosexual, 16% bisexual, 7.5% lesbian gay, 2.7% pansexual, 2.3% asexual, and then about, God forbid, promiscuity. So celibacy, I guess, has been going up, which I guess in mine is a good thing. 38% of the student body did not have sex this semester. Good for them. 28% had sex once or twice per month or less. In the 20%, once or twice per week. Like 6%, 3 or 4 times per week. A few in a few percent, even 5 or 6 times or 7 or more time. And they also had by class, 25% of seniors that I guess the younger students were more likely to be celibate. And it may be also changed by field engineering students. God forbid, 16.9% of students in the School of Social Work have had 10 or more sexual partners in college. So, God forbid, just some interesting things about, I don't know if when you were in university, if they had one of these sex surveys, but I think the number, I think sexuality, certainly with COVID-19, but in general, it has been decreasing. So they release this every year. So it's the annual sex survey.
Sex survey sounds like something someone who doesn't have sex is interested in.
Well, I was glad to see the amount of celibacy increasing, but no, I think it's actually more the probably more promiscuous people are the one who read it, and even you can even see the article was kind of like enticing people to, God forbid, have more relations. But it surveyed like a good chunk of people, like I think well over 1,000 people, like over 10% of the student body. So that's my week in review. So of notes. So I also I made a song. So like I had like a rap battle. Oh, so I think Jennifer also on Wednesday has organized like a Ask Me Anything on this new Discord server. So if anyone from that Discord server is here or joins that Discord, you could check out Jennifer's Discord or message. I shared it in my Discord the link, but I think you have to join.
I don't really have a Discord. I'm just sort of leeching off Tom Jumps to my extreme joy.
Well, you do have a Discord, and
well, I mean, there's like 8 people in it, and it's not really if there's 8 people in it, it's not really a Discord. It's more like a private message group that happens to be a.
Well, it's your Discord.
I don't know how to use that. Okay.
Well,
right.
However unsuccessful you are at
promoting it.
Over 60 people in my Discord.
Oh, you are the man.
Your Discord, whether it's on
60 people. Wow.
Whether
I wish I could be on Discord all the time, all day, managing shitheads coming into my server.
No, I don't even leave my Discord open. Like I probably spend on average definitely less than 10 minutes, probably even more like 3 minutes a day on Discord. I'm just saying I have a Discord. I share my links in Discord. I don't have that many messages. Like usually only like 2 or 3 people post in my Discord a day. I don't spend that much time in it, but I have a Discord over 60 people. So
join Doooovid's Discord because he's so cool.
Well, I have it linked in my Twitter.
It's in his Twitter.
It's the link is in my Twitter description. Is the link to join my Discord. So I made this song about Zobita, and I think it's the first time I ever composed a whole song, and I even have like a hook and rhymes. And said I might.
Well, let's go. I'm dying to hear it.
Okay, so I have a chorus, Zobita El Arabia. And then I have 2 refrains, and so I guess I'll sing it just opening the refrain and then the chorus, and I'll divide just 2 parts too. So I have this one as a rap. I think the one I do for Church of Entropy I won't do it as a rap, but I guess Zobita raps, and so I did this one as a rap. One day on social media, got an invitation. Zobita El Arabia wants to have a friendly conversation. Once I got there, sounded more like confrontation, just a bunch of angry people with no education. Z don't care, just declares victory and give herself congratulation. Z here to represent Islam. One day she's going to be an imam. Don't you dare insult the Quran. Z call you out as a moron. Zobita El Arabia, just a little girl from Iraq with green eyes. Zobita El Arabia, but cross her, she get in your face and call out the lies. Z start out friendly, but then start to yell. According to her, basically everyone's going to hell. Z's passionate about Islam and Palestine, not going to let you oppress innocent people and feel fine. Z is full of passion, hear her screaming, talking for hours, creating a new fashion. Z so convinced she is right, even though just a little girl, not scared of a fight. Even in London, in hijab, she's no foreigner. You could find her every week on Speaker's Corner. Z will call out your lies without end, but that's just her way of trying to be a friend. Zobita El Arabia, here to tell you to your face you're a filthy liar. Zobita El Arabia, what you're doing is going to lead you to hellfire. So I was driving, like I had that like little rap battle with her, and I on my head, I forget what I thought of, but it wasn't so clever. But I had a few, and then I was driving, I was chanting, and for some reason it hit me like like the Zobita with the green eyes, calling out the lies, get in your face, call you a liar, tell you you're going to hellfire, and from that I created a whole song, and so like a hero's journey. Maybe we get like Nicholas or some musician would compose a little bit of music and like I even had that little jingle chime to it. So I think I could compose a full song out of this, but it said like just the lyrics and a little bit of the jingle in terms of song formation. And Luke was asking me about rapping, and Elliot was there, and so I was mentioning why I used to manage, my friend Slang, Slang Mang Brown, the rapper, and we were roommates for a while. Like the only book that he owned was a rhyming dictionary. Like I'm not sure how much education he might not even have got into high school. His formal education was extremely limited, and when we moved into the apartment together, he literally only owned one book, and it was a rhyming dictionary. He had some notebooks that he kept his rhymes in, but for rapping, the main thing is there's a lot to it. I'm saying there's rhythm, there's a lot of musical things. But like you got to rhyme, and if you could come up with rhymes, you could almost rap. So Elliot was there, and I was demonstrating. So I looked online what rhymes with Elliot. So I'm not sure if could you think of
Yeah,
anything
good
that
luck
rhymes
with
with
that, eh? There
Well,
isn't
so
anything. It would have to be like smelly it or something, which would be
well,
just,
I found something, so I made a
Did
quick
you?
rhyme.
Wow.
Yes, like Elliot, he just a little bit too delicate. Unfortunately, that's probably why he's
Uh,
celibate.
oh,
Because I looked online and I saw Elliot, and then they had just a list of 3 words. I forget the indelicate. I think was the first one. Then delicate and celibate. So it's not exactly like Elliot, where it's an exact rhyme, but it's close. Like Elliot, delicate, celibate. Depending on so a lot of times, like you rhyme,
well,
you
if
have to
you're
do.
sloppy rhyming, then that's something different entirely. So I
No, it's not
respect
sloppy
it.
rhyme.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
saying
come on.
I understand that's generic music. Say most music, you don't have hard rhymes, and if you listen to popular music, you have that's general and saying if you have to do the best with what's there. I mean, it doesn't have to rhyme. Like rhyming and rapping, rap doesn't have to rhyme, and not all rap even rhymes. And then if it does rhyme, just be a little bit. It doesn't have to be exact. But like Luke Ford, yeah, I saw there were quite a bit of words like like chord, horde, lord. Um, so I looked onto entropy. What rhymes with entropy?
Not much. I honestly thought the word was invented as a troll by what's his name, but it turns out it's an actual Greek word. So if anything rhymes, it's some other Greek thing.
Yes, I looked online and they gave a few
There's like
words that.
enthalpy. It's obviously not going to work, but in chemistry, there's enthalpy, like the standard
Yeah.
enthalpy of formation.
Well, so you could wrap it like I'd have to create a hook. Think of like uh, you know entropy centrally, entity, equity, enmity, um, penalty. So if you set it in like wrap my streamy partner church of entropy, located centrally, the main entity that will teach you how to buy in equity, but don't have too much enmity, or she'll give you a penalty. I
Oh,
could
that's
go.
a good one. I like the last two. Enmity.
Well, I just wrote
the
down
penalty for enmity.
well, so I just looked online for what rhymes with entropy, and they didn't have anything actually. So they just had sounds like. So sounds like entropy, centrally, and entity. They had a longer list, but I pulled out these words, and then just on the tip of my tongue, and I had some other things in line like Church of Entropy. Some people think that she's Saraswati Dayananda because all she does is talk about Satchitananda. She's affiliated with the Arya Samaj, bringing rage against the British Raj. There's nothing more that she likes than to debunk the Aryan invasion theory, but catch her when she's calm, and she'll talk about drugs like Timothy Leary.
That's not bad.
I was thinking like Aryan invasion theory, Timothy Leary. And I thought like Jen Sharf LARP. That even looked like reincarnation. I guess last action, carnation action, kind of, but reincarnation, motion, notion, characterization, communication, damnation, abomination, alienation, domination. So these were type things like I could create a song about around these rhymes: solipsism, pantheism, multiculturalism, slang, Aryan King. Church of Entropy got her own slang. Nothing more she likes than slashing the Aryan King.
Yeah,
Even
that's
like
true.
monad, fad, nomad, comrade.
Ooh, getting soft. Sorry, continue.
Monology, nanotechnology, anesthesiology. Church of Entropy got her own theory on monology related to the latest gadgets in nanotechnology. Her favorite scientist is Hamarov anesthesiology.
Oh,
Orchestrated objective reduction, construction, instruction, production. And even like, but yeah, I think I could create a song around like a little jingo. I'm not sure what you liked at like Church of Entropy. I thought like I don't know exactly how to phrase the Saraswati Dayananda because all you do is talk about Satchitananda, but I didn't know exactly how to phrase the like. I mean, they're just like Church of Entropy. Some people think she is the embodiment of Saraswati Dayananda.
well, just do something with Jen Sharf and Mul Shankar because it almost rhymes.
Well, I mean, Dayananda, Satchitananda, I think was a pretty good.
But it's both Ananda, isn't it? It's just the same word.
Well, I mean, that's how it
It's
works.
not
I'm
that
saying, like,
amazing.
well, I mean, it doesn't have to be amazing, but it's saying it's telling a story that's relevant to you, and it's lyrical and rhyming. Like I'm saying, like, I mean, if you could do best possible, but saying the purpose is to tell your story in a musical, rhyme way. Arya Samaj, British Raj, Aryan Invasion Theory, Timothy Leary, Church of Entropy. Her favorite thing to do is debunk Aryan invasion theory, but sometimes you can catch her laid back preaching like Timothy Leary.
And who's Timothy Leary?
Timothy Leary, I think, was the Harvard professor that advocated for drug use to achieve high levels of spirituality.
He's not the one who coined the stoned ape hypothesis, is he?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'd have to assume Timothy Leary's definitely. I mean, he passed away, but he was one of the biggest advocates of drug use for like induced spirituality. And like, so make it fitting, orchestrated objective reduction. It's not just of your mind construction. She's here to give you instruction, a whole new production. If you want to be commemorated and not dominated, eliminate. So yeah, I didn't prepare
Your
a song for
doubts
you,
must
but
be eliminated. Yeah, well, that's good. I like it. It's very good.
yes,
Start,
I think I could
I'm
write you a
honored.
theme song. I think I could write you a theme song. So the Zobita one came to me Thursday or Friday while I was driving. Then I came home, I wrote down the rhymes, and then like it can't like so I was like, how to say it in like a Zobita El Arabia. So I'd have to come up with like like a Church of Entropy, like a jingle, like your theme song, your hero's introduction. So I'm not exactly sure, like Church of Entropy, or some sort of jingle, your hero's theme. So I got to think a little bit how I do it. Like so, it hadn't came to me what your hero's theme will be. So maybe next week I'll have that ready.
Cool. So would you say that it was revealed to you?
The Zobita one
Discovered?
was revealed to me. Like I was driving and I was chanting japa on my Tulsi beads, and then all of a sudden it just came to me. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was chanting on japa beads, and that's just like I said about meditation. My mind was basically clear. I was just chanting. I wasn't thinking anything. And then all of a sudden, like these rhymes, like came to me: the green eyes calling out the lies, filthy liar, hellfire. So I thought that was kind of indicative of Zobita. With the green eyes calling out the lies, not afraid to call you a filthy liar and tell you your action's going to cause you hellfire, and then also like yell in hell, and So just randomly, kind of like those were the thoughts for whatever reason as I was chanting driving home Thursday from my parents from my work was popping in my head. So I took it as some sort of like, okay, I'll write a song. So and then I felt, okay, I wrote Zobita a song, um, and so I should write Church of Entropy a song. But for whatever reason, the jingle, like how to say Zobita El Rabia, like came to me. It hasn't came to me like the your theme introduction. Maybe if it comes to you, I don't know, like if how do you musically say Church of Entropy?
Well, it's a mystery. Don't think I could improvise such a thing live on the show, but I'll.
I could just make one up. I could take like a tune that I like and just switch the tune to your words, or if you had like a song that you like, I could just take the tunes from a song that you like and take some of those tunes to your theme song, or maybe it'll just come to me, like some like quick jingle, and there's people who do that professionally, like for commercials, that just come up with a quick jingle that's supposed to stick in your head, and but should be something that for whatever reason would be recognizable as your hero's entrance theme. And then even like the Joseph Campbell theory of music, that the song, if it was composed and had music, would have the basic elements of the hero's journey. That you'd have the theme introduction, variation on theme through creation of dissonance. Chorus would have some sort of resolution of dissonance that was clearly recognizable as related to the theme introduction. So I mean that's just basic musical songwriting logic. So I guess with that, like here's week in review. So there's definitely a lot of stuff we could talk about. So we'll let Jennifer do her week in review. We're definitely going to talk about the flat Earth. I'm not sure if anyone's coming on. Maybe we'll talk about the historic Jesus, and then maybe we'll talk about just the debate scene in general with like Ralph and Zobita and Politically Provoked, and even James being on Crucible tomorrow. Oh, and also I saw that they're doing an IRL debate event in Texas. Like I saw Ben
That's
Watkins, Capturing Christianity. Ben Watkins was the atheist that came to their event in Texas. So I'm not exactly sure the lineup, but I said like one day Doovid and Jennifer will be like a world tour, and so I guess modern day debate, pretty big venue. And so I guess they're big enough that they're making an IRL convention. So good for them. And I guess they're not paying Jennifer to fly in for her to debate this year, but maybe next year.
Oh, thank you so much for the vote of confidence. My week in review. Let's think here. So I had an idea. 'Cause I keep tripping over this hyperbolic figure eight, not complement, and I'm not the one who came up with it, but it is the right shape and does the animating potential for the mushroom and apple. Makes that point rather. I was going to say pungently, but that's not the right word, so I will just skip it. I was thinking we call the HF8. So this is not really the hyperbolic figure eight complement. It's like the inside of it, and the actual thing is, yeah.
Pictures actually are not really Earth curvature. That was our.
Maybe Eclipse starts to play
You got it.
here. Just ignore that. Here we go. Here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Here we go. This is still not quite what it looks like. The best one is the one Thad has, but that's got the parts removed, and in reality, it's nothing's removed, but it's clear, and it's super fluid, which is a model of entanglement. So this is like the thing, but it's sort of swept out. Says though it's some curtains that you just peek inside, and now you're fully peeking here. Like the outer chamber basically has been completely removed except for a single line, if that makes sense, which is in this one. So this is the way to look at it, because there's redundancy pretty much throughout the entire field. You don't really need to see any more than a single one of its lines because you can just rotate that object about the vertical axis and generate the entire field. So it's not about that per se. It's about, yeah, seeing this, blah, 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 blah. My point is that I wanted to call this a 4-dimensional bubble. It's still a lot of syllables, but it's, yeah, less horrible than the other one. So the debate was great. I made a GIF of this quantum computer. People don't really seem too interested in this yet, so I'll just wait. But now I've at least got my animated ones that'll show the overall vibe arena. Had a fun time on the debate for sure. So yay. I didn't take it too seriously, which I think I've done in the past, and it's led to less than optimal results. So yay for hopefully having some improvement on rhetoric. I was very, hesitant to do this type of debate, but then I realized it's actually an interesting opportunity to show why there's problems with empiricism, or at least writ large, how it's understood. Because the type of reasoning that the flat earthers are using is hard to push back on with a purely empiricist model, which is, Doowovid already knows this, brought this up, but yeah, that was basically, I kept that in mind, and I didn't really think that there was any need to get super aggressive. I don't think it would have actually made things better. I thought it was better to just clown a little bit in a way, because it's like, why are we having this debate? Like, I don't know who we should be clowning on, but probably somebody, because it's just, it is weird that there's so many flat earth debates on that channel. And there didn't used to be, it seems like. It sort of took a turn at some point. And then I was thinking, if you say Saint Nick really fast a bunch of times, it sounds exactly like satanic, and I was kind of chuckling about that. That's really a complete non sequitur to anything. I just have some random notes here. About the flat earth specifically, there's a bunch of problems on the side of the globe. And the flat, obviously. The flat people can't substantiate anything. The globe people are supposed to be able to substantiate all their positions. Like, why are the planets in a near disk orbit pattern around the sun? Why is there stationary axis in the planet? Like, okay, yeah. But why? I'm not sure anyone has a satisfying answer. Or maybe if somebody did, that these debates would perhaps get more interesting. Just a thought. I wanted to know what you thought about the Discord thing that you went to. I think you're muted. Oh wait, I can't hear you. But I think you're. Yeah, there you go.
Ask me anything. The first guy, I mean, it was only mildly interesting. I mean, I guess it was like a little bit of friendly question, but like I didn't know exactly, why this guy should be interesting, or why, even general. If he was, I'm not sure if he was a nihilist. So I popped on. I asked him a little bit about karma. Like, I just didn't know anything about him, and like breaking the communication barrier to, just know like why I should want to, ask something to like a nihilist, or just to, argue for the sake of arguing. But I mean, I guess Jennifer, put like a AMA with me, so we'll see if anyone feels like that I'm interesting to ask questions to. But yeah, like I'm already a grown man. Like maybe the people are younger, so like, like I really just didn't. You had less interest in someone else's AMA. We'll see if anyone else has any interesting questions for me. Yeah, I thought you definitely underperformed in the flat Earth debate, although, yeah, I'm not sure if they put much evidence for. I mean, it seemed like the basic empirical evidence. Like, I remember the first time I flew to Israel, and I mean, you would have had to create visuals for it, but I saw that we were flying north, and I asked someone. It made intuitive sense to me, because it's a quicker trajectory to fly over Greenland than to fly straight. From Detroit to Israel, to say fly over like Boston, the Atlantic Ocean, on a straight line is a further distance than doing an elliptical over going like over Greenland and and through Europe because of because we're on a sphere, and so you could take a string on a sphere and see these distances. And he mentioned some things like he knows pilots and things like that, and then the example I gave for on the debate prep of the vanishing point, the explanation for what happens at dusk and dawn every day for the sun disappearing and then their light being in the sky. Plus your explanation for just the least action principle. I think the way you explained it as the least action principle, just say that. Maybe it's the best way to explain it actually, but I'm not sure anyone really seemed to understand what you're saying.
No, it was a total bullshit answer, and I'm glad that you noticed.
Well,
this is a bullshit debate, and that was my point.
Well, no, it wasn't a bullshit debate. I was saying that there's people who question something that's largely fundamentally accepted, but you're saying like here's this woman who's like supposed to be this great physicist, and she can't even demonstrate that the globe is a sphere, or spherical. So it's really.
Well, here's the thing that people, if they don't know that, what could they be counted on to know? Perhaps I'm making a greater point.
Well, that's the point that I gave to you on the show. Like, if you're a mother, you have your child. People are born into darkness. That like if you like blank slate or whatever, and you have to educate them, and God forbid, like Holocaust denial or something like that. You're saying people don't know; they're not born knowing things. They need to be explained. And whatever reason these things have been accepted, the powers at be have said this is what is, versus a reasonable, logical explanation, just like evolution. Like everyone knows evolution is true. Like 98% of academics believe in evolution. But like what even is evolution? The amount of people that even understand the theory of evolution, just we just know that everyone believes it. So something like the globe being spherical is something that should be relatively intuitively easy to demonstrate, and that's why I gave you because
it's not.
Why I say because it matches
accept a proof of it, and I know why.
Why? Because I don't think you actually gave a good proof of it.
I didn't. But if I already knew that no one would accept the proof, I'm actually being rational to not even try to give one.
Well, so you just put in a bad performance, so you wasted everybody's time.
I don't think so. I think there was a lot of benefits to that debate, and I think I did do some good things. It's just my intro could have been better. It wasn't the best.
Yeah, well, I'm saying like I can't see you patting yourself in the back for putting in a bad performance. And if it's something so simple,
it's the T-jump debate all over again.
And something so simple, like you say, if it's so simple, you should have been able to demonstrate it.
It's simple if you're using Brahmanas. It's not simple if people believe in empiricism and Big Bang and a bunch of other stuff that makes it hard to understand.
You need Big Bang. You're saying empiricism, like here.
Well, there's a question as to why this debate is happening. Why a flat Earth? Is it a good faith debate or what? Is it because people are actually seriously believing this? Or? Oh, sure.
Well, I'm saying it's your bad karma. There's just like, okay, I'm talking with Zobita, or politically provoked, and it's kind of these crap shows that it's just people yelling and non-serious people and saying it's my bad karma. That's what I'm dealing with. But saying still take it serious as possible, like just because other people don't take their life seriously. And I have to associate with people who don't take their life seriously doesn't mean that I shouldn't take my life seriously. And
I am taking it seriously. Going a step further and saying it's illogical to attempt to pursue with logic is rational, isn't it?
It's illogical to logically try to demonstrate that.
Did you or did you not say that? What was it? Logic is a European man's greatest weakness, or something? What did you mean by that?
Well, that was more rhetorical and arguing with blue-eyed people. That means I use their weapon against them, namely logic. But I say if you're using the rules of logic, scientific method to give a clear, concise, easily understandable explanation, like like I did, I drew out for you on my showed, like the simple diagram about the vanishing point. You could have done like 2 strings on a ball,
Ironically,
or drawing
Jen,
like
don't start teaching on the debate. Now it's a flat Earth debate. I'm supposed to teach on the debate. Okay, interesting.
how do you
I thought
get
debates
from
were about landing critical blows to the rhetorical tautness of your opponent.
well, I say if you're trying to like the Jerry Springer show, you're trying to become the next guest on the Jerry Springer show.
Oh, is that what I'm trying to do? No.
Well, I mean, that's what it looks like. God forbid. But I mean, how do you get from Canada to New Zealand?
Can you at least acknowledge my point that people believing as they believe, what with the Cartesian stuff, my proof wouldn't have worked or convinced anybody? People aren't.
Well, I think
gonna be
you're so
convinced,
focused on
is my point.
focused on
I
yourself.
went into that debate trying to change people's minds
give
on the other
give a
side.
generic. You don't have to like I've been saying, because you're constantly like self-promoting you and your own ideas, and as opposed to just giving a simple mathematical logical explanation for something that's simple.
Here's
And
a
so
question.
you can't separate
What's the point of a
separate
debate?
your
No,
own self-promotion
no.
from you're just giving a simple logical lesson.
I wanted to change minds on the opposite side. In my understanding, that's the point of a debate. Now you're saying, no, I have to heptuple down with a failed strategy that makes me feel smart about myself. Aren't there enough people doing that out there already?
I'm not sure. I thought it was kind of a bad performance. I mean, I was saying a horrible performance, but like, I mean, I honestly, I think they won, like relative from like the standards of the debate. Like I didn't even flow it, but like I think if like I actually had to judge it, I think they beat you. Even though I mean I don't agree with them. Like I'm,
Well, you
I'm
have a
pretty sure.
very high and exacting standard of me, which I take as a compliment, or try to. All
Well,
right.
I mean, just being objective. Like
Yes,
like
that's off. That's always possible, isn't it? Objectivity.
yeah, I'm saying like unfortunately, like your performance was so poor that you lost to the flat earthers. I'm sorry. God forbid.
Okay. I wanted to do a.
And we even did like a
poll.
prep show, like maybe like if I'm saying like just a generic.
I'm not going to double down on a failed strategy.
I mean, saying that you didn't really have a good strategy, and when it came down to it, that's why you lost the debate, because you didn't really have a strategy. You just had a few arguments, and then you couldn't really frame it, and then I guess I should have reminded you. I forgot to remind you, like I mean, I guess because Zobita came on, and but like just the basic framing, like how you should have framed it, and like the basic debate technique of recapping, and so unfortunately, like it was unclear, like the direction of the arguments. It probably would have been near impossible to flow. Mark seemed unnecessarily like argumentative and condescending, as opposed to actually focusing on the arguments, and that they think, it wasn't like they didn't understand science, so they it seemed that they actually had a reasonable grasp of science and were giving logical arguments, and then Mark was just kind of unnecessary condescending. And then you were like, cracking jokes, and it was like, what the hell?
I felt somewhat like I was being paraded out like circus animal to be laughed at.
Well, you were.
Well, fine, I'm going to clown right back on him then.
Okay,
and I'm completely entitled to that.
It's your bad. You had the opportunity to demonstrate that you have a solid grasp of math and science.
The point isn't that. The question is what wins the debate
in simple terms. But here, this woman, who's supposedly like this big genius with these deep scientific theories, can't even simply explain why the Earth is spherical.
You're right. I suck. I'll have to work better for the next one.
Yeah, I'm saying like it should like. I mean, it was probably like personality type things where you're worried about like perception or trying to do some like trickery or something like that, or like win people over, when like you should have just given a simple, easy explanation for why the globe is spherical. Like I said, like when you fly from Detroit to Israel, and
There
you don't fly
isn't
the straight
one.
path. I mean, something that anybody could say, like, have you ever flown from the U.S. to Europe? And like some simple demonstration, like even like what I showed about the vanishing point, and I don't even know how much Mark did, like his homework. He was given the Greek experiment, and like his opponents knew the experiment and had arguments against it. So it was like Mark, he was like, these morons, they don't even know the Greek experiment. Like, no, they had their conspiracy, they did their research, they knew more about the Greek experiment than he did. So I mean, then he didn't take the debate seriously. You didn't take the debate seriously, and you got beat.
Oh, I take it very seriously. The conclusion is we need education reform.
Well, you should be able to explain simple concepts in a simple way that average intelligent people could understand them.
Okay, Richard Dawkins.
And then you came in with your like a quantum periodic table. It was like it wasn't about your quantum periodic table. Like you would have done better advertising for your quantum periodic table by giving a clear, easily understandable, unquestionable explanation for why the globe is spherical. And like, so God forbid you lost to flat earthers.
Womp womp. I still thought there were some good points and jokes. And it was, in theory, a joke of a debate. I mean, if it's so obvious,
so you made
how
a
come
joke
the
of
debate's
yourself.
still
You're proud of
happening?
yourself for making a joke of yourself.
Mm.
You made an ass of yourself, and now you're laughing at yourself. You're like, well, I think I'm funny, and so now you're proud of yourself for making an ass out of yourself.
I don't really think I did, though. No more than anyone else on that. So why am I being held to a higher standard?
I'm holding you to an objective standard. I'm not holding you to a higher standard. Holding to an objective standard, and I don't care if you look better than any of the other people. Although, I mean, maybe you looked a little bit better than Mark because, like, for whatever reason, he was just unnecessarily hostile and interrupting, and not taking the other people seriously when he himself, seemed to have less facts than they did, and so like it's not a comparison. I'm looking at an objective standard that you failed the basic mission of giving a clear, concise, easily understandable explanation for why the globe is spherical.
Maybe there isn't one.
Why, I just gave you a simple one. Like when you travel from the
according
U.S. to
do you
Europe.
remember when Howie Hughes came on this channel and he was like, yeah, it's really simple to set up your own computer? It's like, it's not. It just seems simple because you can do it. And it's the same with the Earth. It's like, obviously, if you zoom in on a sphere, it's approximately a plane. Duh. Anybody who can visualize can see that. Why you'd expect, if you were on a sphere or any sufficiently large object that was smooth, you would expect it to seem flat. The flatness, seemingness of the Earth has no bearing on its shape. So what is the series of logical, quote unquote, steps that one has to take to demonstrate that the planet we inhabit, which is many orders of magnitude larger than we are, how do you easily come to that conclusion?
Well, let me show you.
You can't. You can't, because your own consciousness serves to disentangle space-time. So your own perception is in basically direct opposition to the globe.
I mean, here's
your own
the simple
perception makes things seem flat. That's why we love paper.
I mean, here's the screen. I mean, do you have my screen share going?
I will put it on right now. There we go.
Just something simple from experience. They may have had answers or arguments for it, but when you travel, for example, if you're traveling from the U.S. to Europe, you go north. You don't go over the bulge of the equator. It's a shorter distance.
Okay, so right away you've already
So we're
got a big silence there.
We're looking at a geodesy that, I mean, I don't know if I take out a sphere with the string. Like I had courses where we've done this, but if you're traveling from one place to another on the planet, you don't travel in a straight line like
Straight
it would
circle.
be on a map.
It's a great circle. Intersection of a plane and the center.
Yeah, and so you could take out a string and
what am I going to
demonstrate.
go into a second year mathematics course? Like I learned this in second year university about, and it was an entire course dedicated to spherical geometry. Cover the points of spherical geometry on a random, dumpster fire internet throwdown debate.
Yeah, so I mean, you made yourself look like you don't know what you're talking about. You could have. This is the most simple explanation that you could have given, and it's a
Somebody
question.
made the point in the chat already. They said they've heard all those points before, and hey, I didn't turn on Mark.
What's the shortest distance? Is it shorter if you're going from California to Germany? Is it shorter this straight line or this curve? And the answer is it's the curve, and you could measure it, and it's because the globe is spherical. And I'm just looking, I'm just looking online for.
That's not compelling, okay? If you have to start to go into the well, it's obviously spherical. It's like, okay, it's not obvious at all what these are representing.
This empirical, that how do you know that the globe is flat? And so the nature of a sphere is that it's a shorter distance from the US to Europe to go north than to go in a straight line straight over the Atlantic. And you could demonstrate that clearly on a sphere with like a string or a measurement. And so here they actually have the numbers. So from New York to Moscow, the straight line on the map from New York to Moscow is 5,500 miles. But if you go north towards Greenland, it's only 4,660 miles. And that's because it's a sphere.
I don't think anyone is going to be convinced by that.
Well, it's straightforward and simple. Like, I don't think anyone was, I mean, people probably already thought it was spherical, but I mean, you didn't really even put forward a basic argument. And then, I did on...
I thought I made pretty good arguments, to be honest. Realistic ones. I just looked at other...
I did on my stream.
I looked at people who had flat Earth channels and tried to do that type of thing.
I did on my stream just like a basic diagram I drew in Paint of, saying that the sun rising or setting, that that the easiest, clearest explanation for what happens in the morning when the sun rises or at night when the sun sets is because the globe is spherical, that the sun slowly disappears, and then but the light from the sun is still in the sky for a certain amount of time until the light from the sun is no longer visible. And these are pretty clear, like, not complicated explanations that you could probably give a 10-year-old. If your 10-year-old kid was asking you, how do you know the globe is flat, is spherical, that you could pull out a ball and a string, and you could see the distance, or if person's actually flown overseas, and say, remember when we flew overseas and flew to Europe, that we flew north into close to the North Pole as opposed to straight over the Atlantic. Or how do you understand what happens every day when the sun rises and sets? And then even Mark, if you want to give like the Aristophanes or like these Greek understandings, that they would have been able to like done a little bit more research. And then and you made some points about gravity. I mean, you taught some basic physics in just like the general physics of a sphere. So I'm not saying like you didn't do anything, but I think like like, God forbid you didn't put a good debate performance. So I'm not saying you didn't make some points. Like maybe you were a little bit funny, maybe relatively to the other panelists, you were the best of them. But as a debate performance, it wasn't that good. In terms of like the value proposition of what was your goal, from what were you brought there to do? So saying, okay, like, so it was a lie. It wasn't really a debate on flat Earth. You were just brought out there to make an ass of yourself and make people laugh. So like, no, you were there to give a simple, clear explanation for why the globe is spherical, and you failed to do that.
I just don't think I could have, in the time that I had, accomplished that goal, given everybody's presuppositional notions they would have been coming to the debate with. Remember, I'm not trying to convince the people who already believe it's a globe. Yeah, we did talk before the debate, and this idea that I turned on Mark is absolutely just someone trying to stir up shit, this bullshit. And we had a huge combo, and I thought, honestly, it went really well. Dude was just being ultra, it's just like a competition for who can be the most harsh. And yeah, okay,
objective. I'm saying, like, you failed to do a very simple thing, and like, God forbid, like you want to be a great teacher and get big audiences. You have to be able to explain things clearly and simply. You don't get extra points for over.
I just feel like you're not hearing my point here. I did a calculation.
Excuses or point?
Explanation.
Well, I'm hearing excuses. I mean, I don't. What do you call it? Your explanation, an excuse, or?
Well, if you want to say it's an excuse, sure.
Your own audience of your own followers, the majority think that you lost.
Me for a while, who already.
Well,
haven't you noticed that my audience likes to clown on old Jen?
Your own audience thinks that you lost. God forbid.
God forbid.
No, I'm saying, like, Don Willis is not like Big Brother. Like, this is like Doooovid, your debate coach, and it's saying, like, no, like I'm shocked and embarrassed that you lost to the flat earthers. And it's because you didn't take it seriously.
I did take it seriously, everything and I seriously, thought that had the best chance of changing people's minds. And you see, like, you didn't
take it seriously, and you lost to the flat earthers.
Look, I thought that had the best chance of changing people's minds, but I guess it didn't, in your view, and that's cool. What can you do?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm saying, like, did you? I mean, like, some objective, quantitative measurement. Like,
I don't believe in objectivity. I don't believe in objective.
But I mean, you do believe in quantifiable evidence, and saying you have any quantifiable evidence that you changed anybody's mind.
Techniques. Well, somebody in the chat said, well, I believe in a globe now, but that could have just been clown posting, so I can't tell. We'll have to wait a while and see.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, I made this point to you many times. Like
I have an insurmountable gap to overcome.
You were there to explain something
simple,
not to promote your cult, or not to promote your teachings. And
my determination was that it was insurmountable. And then I said, you should try to understand spheres, because there's all this other stuff you can access with the proper spherical knowledge. And yes, I may have.
It's saying, like,
dabbled.
I mean, like, you get like pleasure out of wasting people's times. There's like hundreds of people watching and thousands of people watching that you couldn't even prepare like a good PowerPoint slide share. A good opening.
A serious debate?
I mean, you didn't. Well, I'm saying, you know that there's hundreds of people watching. You couldn't even prepare a good opening, a good slideshow.
Well, I thought it would be better performance if it was improvised 100%, based on past precedent.
Is that the feedback you're getting?
That's my own self-feedback, and I'm fine to rely on the opinions of others, but I have to be qualified.
Yeah, so, like, God forbid, I mean, did they, you got other debates lined up? I mean, I think if you put a better performance in, it would have been more likely they would have booked you for debates on your topic.
I guess
Even just a little bit of professionalness, like a professional debater. You did your due diligence, your research, you had a good opening, a good slideshow, you had your arguments well organized. You followed the basic structure of debate and carrying forward your arguments and recapping. And it's like, no, unfortunately, you didn't. But like, I don't need to yell at you and be hard on you. There's just unfortunately, that's my take on what happened.
All right.
Like, I'm okay. Like, God is merciful. You have second chances. Like, relative to your competition, maybe you're okay, but I think objectively, you put in a poor performance. But like, no, I don't think it's going to affect your career or anything like that. Like, you just had opportunity that could have helped your career, and so it was probably neutral.
Sometimes I think I do too well, and so people don't like me because of that. So, I thought, if I just do a little worse, then maybe they'll be more open. Is that not rational?
I don't like you benefited yourself by like publicly making an ass out of yourself. I mean, you didn't really publicly make an ass out of yourself. You just underperformed, and they relatively overperformed because they seemed relatively to be using straightforward, coherent logic and well-structured. So, I mean, like, God forbid, like, you look like the quack, not them. And they're the ones arguing for flat earth.
What if the bigger statement is we need education reform?
Well, we do, but I'm saying, like, God forbid, they look kind of like together, professional, using the scientific method, and like you and Mark look like quacks. God forbid. What sense does that make?
Maybe there should be an inquiry as to who's funding these flat earth organizations. Isn't that the rational, reasonable direction to go from here?
No,
not taking it seriously in a debate and mounting
it was your issue
defense?
That you couldn't explain a simple concept in a clear, coherent, concise manner. You're going off on your tangents that are largely irrelevant to just like, can you explain a simple concept in a clear, coherent manner in front of a crowd? And unfortunately, the answer is no.
Not when people have a bunch of biases,
or even Ralph. Like you said, like Doooovid debunking the anti-Semites. It's just in a clear, easy to understand manner. You're debunking conspiracies, not going off on like unrelated random things. Just an easy, logical, coherent explanations, concise.
So, can you give me an example of someone who has achieved this in this style of debate?
Well, I showed you Ralph in the introduction. Ralph's restream of my debate with Chris.
I'm talking about a flat Earth debate specifically. You do realize the flat Earth people use this different type of rhetoric, right?
I mean, honestly, that's the only flat Earth debate I ever watched. I didn't even really.
So you're not really an expert on flat Earth debates. You're just.
No, I mean, like I know a little bit of history, and this is the first and only flat Earth and probably debate I've ever watched. But like, I think I would have performed better than like just me versus them. I would have performed substantially better. Like it would have researched, got a few pictures of the basics of like when you fly or the vanishing point, and even without coming to arguments that you made, I would have went over the historic, simple, clear understandings. I would have found some graphics. Maybe if I had a sphere and a string, I would have demonstrated that distance point that I made, and that the points that we know when we travel around the globe, and so their arguments, like I mean, if I were debating the flat earthers, I probably would have. I mean, it looks like they've debated. I probably would have watched a few of their debates and studied a few of their arguments. So, this was your debate, your homework. Like I didn't do your homework for you.
I
But if
don't
I were
expect you
debating the
to.
flat Earth, I
But
probably
you're not
would have
familiar
watched.
with their standard arguments, so you're like, your position sucked. It's like, yo, my material to train myself for this debate was flat Earth debates. I've watched a lot of them.
And you couldn't even. I mean, saying like I haven't watched any of them.
Yeah, it
saying, like,
shows.
you watched a lot of them, and you still couldn't like give a clear, concise explanation. I mean, if you want to debunk their arguments, so even if you didn't debunk their arguments,
Every single
but if-
argument they brought up, I tried to address, and I had notes, and some of them were very hard. The vacuum, the fact that most people, you've seen me try to explain that thing with the moon and the stasis field and the waveform coming in and going out that forms a stasis field between the moon and the Earth. Because like these are not planar waves just randomly, moving around the moon. Like
I don't see how they.
it's extremely hard to visualize. Like you're looking at something that
Yeah, I mean, to
starts
explain
off
how the
as 3
atmosphere
+ 1
works is very
dimensional,
complicated.
and
But just
it's
to show
fully
how
absorbed by the moon, basically.
how that they, as a flat Earth, has a better explanation for the phenomenon than a spherical. Like I'm not sure there any logic of their arguments. I mean, just explain the atmosphere, explain how the atmosphere it doesn't fly away. It's kind of complicated, but to just question how a flat Earth would allow for an atmosphere to be easily understood than a spherical Earth.
They did the Socratic shuffle. They started off the debate with, "Oh, we're flat earthers," and then halfway through they're like, "Well, actually, we're not saying it's a pancake." And it's like, well, I thought that's what flat meant, but okay. So they Socratic shuffled. They made it slippery. They took a very slippery position, hard to go after.
I mean, it could just be like the blue eye credibility factor also. That like they're just sitting there with their blue eyes, so they look more credible. That people think, well, like they got blue eyes, they're probably more credible.
Someone's asking where the debate is. It's in the description. Easy enough.
Do you ever see that movie Animal House?
It doesn't sound familiar.
National Lampoon's Animal
No, I don't
House.
think so.
Anyone in the chat familiar with the famous 70s movie with James Belushi, Animal House, the ultimate fraternity, probably one of the most famous movies ever. (1978) film, National Lampoon's Animal House, like probably the most famous university fraternity movie ever. Not even like Revenge of the Nerds. Like I like Revenge of the Nerds, but Animal House, one like a classic American movie. Is that
all right? So democratically, and we all know what I think about democracy. Globe lost by a very narrow margin. I think it would have been one of those one vote tips. I can't believe how badly everyone is taking this. I thought I
don't
did
take
really
it badly,
good.
just like objective. Like you want an objective.
But I don't believe in objectivity, right? So I'm not convinced. Trying to say unbiased.
Yeah, I mean, just unbiased interpretation of what happened. I'm sorry you lost.
By a standard of winning that, in my eyes, is impractical. To me, if I'm not trying to change minds on the other side, then I'm not really doing my job. I take very seriously. So there you go.
You said you didn't care whether you won or lost. So,
well, if you think I won or lost versus if anybody changed their mind may not be the same answer.
I mean, you need a polling of what people thought beforehand.
But I don't accept democracy. Yeah,
Well, so whether
exactly.
you
We need a
change
before
anyone's
and
mind.
after. Yeah, before and after poll. Yeah, that's what you'd need. Which we didn't do, so there's no way to know. We'll have to wait and see if there's some sort of meta-analysis in the longer term that we can check if it had an impact, which it probably won't.
So I thought
yeah.
that was the highlight of my Adam Green debate, and I'm not exactly sure why I was thinking it, but I quoted the Animal House when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. Anyone familiar with that? When the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor line from Animal House? Oh, I put I'll put a clip in, like even just YouTube when you do Animal House when Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. Pluto's speech from so this has like 600,000 views on YouTube. I mean, the Belushi brothers were on Saturday Night Live comedy, famous comedy actors, the Blues Brothers. If anyone saw the movie The Blues Brothers. So in Animal House, it's kind of like Revenge of the Nerds, kind of like a pro-multiculturalism movie where people go to the, like a fake university, and they, similar to Revenge of the Nerds, they join a fraternity, and because they're not like white and the old guard of white America, they have to join like the rejects fraternity, and so they have kind of like wild parties, and then they have their run-in with like the mainstream white fraternity, like Kevin Bacon's in it, the famous God forbid, thank you, may I have another scene. And kind of like Revenge of the Nerds, there's a conflict back and forth between like the dean and the other fraternity, and at one point one of the heads of the fraternity gets beat up and they get kicked out of university, and Bluto, who's kind of this party animal, funny character, the comedy relief of the movie, gives a speech to rile people up, and so he says, "Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?" Which is obviously it was the Japanese that bombed Pearl Harbor, but saying that they're not the brightest people. So I use that line in my debate with Adam Green. Like one thing, because Adam Green and the people who watch him, their understanding of history is not that great. So I was like, when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor, and then I was making the point, God forbid, about the predictions of the prophet, because Adam. So can I do another screen share?
Yep, come right
You
up.
want to talk about the historic Jesus?
Sure, it'd be awesome to hear what you thought about that exchange there.
So
okay, I just got to change the screen display here because it's got you pinned.
I thought the conversation with Adam was pretty good, and like I thought I got enjoyment. So let me pull out. Not sure. Can you play a clip?
I can try. I can try. Don't know where it's ultimately going to go, but.
So I'm putting in the chat. Adam's new intro is like awesome. Like he had a really, really cool new intro. So if you could get it to 25 25 or 25 20 25 20. That's why I said not to be humorous, but kind of like that scene in Animal House where it's like when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. But I'm not exactly sure why I thought of that, like because I hadn't seen Animal House in a long time. Just for whatever reason that came to my head when I was doing it. I thought that was the highlight of the debate. And so here is my chart I made that I went over in mine for the historical Jesus multiple truth hypothesis. So Adam's theory is that probably that Jesus didn't exist and is some sort of Jewish psyop. And his main proof of that is his understanding of who benefits. That he feels that the Jews have benefited the most from Christianity, and therefore, like in reverse, it must have been a psyop, psychological operation of the Jews, for whatever benefit that we receive out of Christianity, which he has some evidence from rabbis and rabbinic scripture that I mentioned in my debate with Chris, is saying like people who believe in God and providence after the fact will interpret things as the unfolding of God's greater plan. But the Kabbalah Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai from that scene, he was in a really bad situation. That's why I brought up that Animal House when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. Like in the movie, they'd just been their main guy was beat up, and they just been expelled from university, and saying like we're still going to win. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the temple had just been destroyed. God forbid his teacher Rabbi Akiva had just been tortured to death. Most of his fellow rabbis of the generation were publicly tortured to death by the Romans, and he was hiding in a cave out of fear of death. When he doesn't write the Zohar while he's in the cave, but the wisdom that he comes up with, and then you're saying thousands of years later, what he wrote came to pass to be true. So I was saying like that's music to my ears. That saying, but you say it's a psyop that the words of the sages came to be true, and it's kind of anachronistic. It's ahistorical, but like if from the abstract level of thought, from the multiple truth hypothesis, looking at what are the possibilities, what are the implications of the possibilities, and like I went over who was Jesus? Was he kind of like a rabbi? And the various, like, if he was a rabbi, what kind of rabbi? Like fake, is it possible that there actually was no Jesus, that there was no historical Jesus? And then how does it get, is it just completely made up? Is it a conglomerate of other characters that somehow got in legends put together to be understood to be one character that in reality didn't exist? Or did they take legends that Jews had believed in or people in the ancient Israel believed in and adapted that to one person? And then I also like Avatar, is that what higher forces, is it possible Jesus was an alien or some sort of pagan deity? A lot of times Hindus will say that Jesus was Vishnu Tattva, like as some sort of avatar carnation, that Jesus wasn't a Jew, he had nothing to do with the Hebrew prophecies, but that Jesus was Vishnu Tattva. I'm not sure, have you ever heard that?
I think so.
It's a common belief in India among Hindus or Christians that Jesus had nothing to do with the Hebrew prophets, wasn't Jewish, and was some sort of avatar, and that they're called like the lower level of Vishnu. And then like the historical event, like the crucifixion and resurrection, how do you explain those? Were they just legends? Were they conglomerates? Was it historical fact? Like, was there factually a person, Jesus, who was crucified? And then the resurrection, if it saying if you're rejecting that the resurrection happened, how did it come to people came to believe in it? Is it adapted legends or some sort of mass delusion? And the question of the disciples, did the disciples act coordinated or uncoordinated? Were there late joiners who really never heard of Jesus and just decided to preach the cult of Jesus for whatever reason, even though they themselves in reality had no idea whether Jesus actually existed? And then for Adam's hypothesis that it was a psyop, that there was like group of rabbis that decided to preach the cult of Jesus because they wanted to get the goyim to follow a religion that had the Jewish God at the center. So like thousands of years later, we would be able to return to Israel and take over the world or something like that. But just saying, from the multiple truth hypothesis, there's a lot of unknowns, and just to spell out the major unknowns in each scenario. And then if you're going to give a narrative, like a complete narrative theory, how does that match with the various unknowns? Like, if you're saying that Jesus was a psyop, does that imply that there was no historical Jesus, or could you adapt the psyop to any of the possibilities? And then to look at the group strategy in terms like Adam's main form of the argument, who benefits, and saying, let's say, well, I mean, Charles, most people disagree. It's like the Jews are the biggest beneficiary of Christianity. But even if you could say present day today, Jews are the biggest beneficiary of Christianity, does that mean that it's likely that there was some sort of psyop that Jews did thousands of years ago? And the historical forces argument, that you either, if you believe in spiritual higher forces like the God of the Hebrew Bible, or the demiurge or pagan forces, or just environmental natural forces, even atheist, say, okay, it wasn't necessarily like a conspiracy of men that purposely put this forward for some sort of conspiratorial reason. It was a reaction towards historical forces that could have been like environmental, economic, or whatever. And then how do you understand the canonization process? How does it go that something becomes canonized, and the people in the cult of Jesus, so to say, canonize, like the Council of Nicaea, or something like the disciples. If none of the disciples actually knew Jesus and were doing this, how did they conspire to have similar stories and later periods of time? So you'd have to give some sort of explanation to the canonization process and the theological implications also. So I mean, did you have any comments on the historic Jesus? I mean, I think you actually kind of agree with Adam as Christianity is a Jewish psyop. I don't know if that's the school that you're actually in the same school of Adam, that you think the best explanation of Christianity is a Jewish psyop.
Well, I like what Samish said, to be honest. I think I'd go with that.
What was that he said?
I've obviously drifted into stronger rhetoric in order to curb stomp certain blahs on the places, but yeah, I guess what Samish says seems pretty balanced.
Well, I have in my chart, he says here that's a Roman propaganda to pacify Judea. So
it really does appear to be like that. Like, what do they say? All roads lead to Rome? I used to kind of cringe.
Well, I have that on my chart here. Group strategy, who benefits Rome, political, economic reasons. So, saying larger factors that, if Rome at that period, Jews make up about 5-10% of the Roman Empire, the Jewish revolt against Rome is the biggest revolt of that time. Like in northern England or whatever. I mean, factually, at the time, the Jews who were rebelling against Rome was the largest population base to rebel, and that they would use some sort of counter-espionage, or raising up Jesus as a way to pacify Jews.
See, I think it's more than that. Like, that probably explains part of it, but also convenience. You have a sprawling empire. It's a way to keep things running.
Yes, I mean, you have to use a multiple truth hypothesis type approach to examine the possibilities and the implications of those possibilities. And you're going to have a lot of moving parts. And so if you stabilize one moving part, and then you have to see how the other pieces of the puzzle are going to fit together with that. And so carrying forward, we do a little more. So let me just because I had this open in my debate with I mean, Sandwich wants to pop on if I'm not sure if he even saw my debate with Adam Green. But so for Ben Watkins next Sunday at 1 before Weekend Review, part of you kind of like this, the flat earth for a sphere is can you prove the globe is a sphere? Is say, well, which explanation has more explanatory power towards the observed phenomenon? Like, and so focused on the observed phenomenon, like when we travel, that we don't move in a straight line, we move further north or south around elliptical, because it's a shorter distance, or how we understand what happens when the sun sets or rises every day. So too with the soul, that you can't really prove the soul, but what explanation has more explanatory power? And the biggest question is mind-body dualism. What's the easiest way to understand mind-body, and then also the role of higher order rules such as math and logic that I have here in these diagrams? That although I can't prove the soul, you could see, okay, maybe there's only a physical world and everything has to be explained through physicalism, that actually a dualistic understanding of a spiritual world and a physical world with mind-body dualism has more explanatory power to the workings of higher order rules and the phenomenon of consciousness. I mean, that's generally the approach I plan on taking with Ben Watkins next week.
Oh yeah. Have you had any more thoughts about that?
No, I mean that was when I see Sizak saying Moses was a Jewish psyop. Well, I mean, you say like Moses is Jewish legend, so it's not really a psyop. I think you're not using psyop properly in that sense. Psyop would mean that it's an alternative party that purposely implanted the ideas. So you say Moses was an Egyptian psyop, like Freud, postulated that Moses was really an Egyptian prince. That would be more like a psyop. That if Moses is, so Jesus, because Jesus is basically a leader to Gentiles and as a Jew, that's why it's a Jewish psyop, or even if you want to call it a Roman psyop. Actually, I saw Jay Dyer started his new thing on MK Ultra series, and that's one of the most famous psyops. I don't even call it a psyop in U.S. history, and God forbid, like the government experimenting on people. And so it's actually interesting that it's possible the Hare Krishna movement in America was part of MK Ultra CIA psyop. And we mentioned Timothy Leary, Allen Ginsberg was part of MK Ultra. He participated in experiments in, I think, University of California through the CIA, although he didn't know it was the CIA at the time, that gave him acid. And you could even look on Wikipedia, mention Allen Ginsberg, and most of the MK Ultra material was destroyed. But a lot of people believe that the original Hare Krishna in America movement was part of MK Ultra, some sort of psyop, in the way that you had Prabhupada, you had a Hindu preacher in America trying to raise up a movement, teach about Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, but at the same time you had a CIA psyop where they were feeding people into it, that it wasn't necessarily just like hippie Americans that were interested in Hinduism. There was something subversive where the CIA was doing things and feeding these people into it, and they were doing it for ulterior reasons, God forbid, even killing people. And so Jay Dyer just started his new series on MK Ultra, which is probably the most famous psyop in modern period of time, ran by the CIA, which is called the psychological operation. And generally it's tricking people. You're saying like like the CIA, you think that these Hare Krishnas on the street are just, for whatever reason, people that are converting to Hinduism for whatever reason, when really the CIA is doing experiments on people and trying to do mind control, and even like LSD, like the period of the 60s where they really, the experiment of MK Ultra was on mind control. That was what the U.S. government was testing, and God forbid they used its own citizens to test it. But the idea was, does mind control work? And actually they tested in New Zealand. I saw Jay Dyer was mentioning where they actually used like subliminal messaging on television in New Zealand, and even possibly trying to see if they could get people to kill people, God forbid. And I don't know exactly the details of the documents, but if you could have put like a quick flash of information on mainstream TV programs that somehow would have incentivized people to kill people. And Jay Dyer did his whole expose on serial killers, and quite a few serial killers were part of MK Ultra CIA operations, like Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, or I think was part of this MK Ultra CIA experimentation. And so it could have, whatever reason that the government was testing, can you use mind control? Can you use subliminal messaging to make people do something? And if that includes carrying out assassinations, like God forbid, you could have a CIA agent and try to get the CIA agent to carry out an assassination. But what if you could just use a mind control technique and get, just a random person to lose control of their own free will and then carry out some sort of covert psychological operation like an assassination, God forbid. So, I think PSYOP, versus like Roman times, that someone would have promoted Christianity. Let's say Jesus didn't exist, or that there was a historical Jesus that was crucified, but then this delusion that Jesus was resurrected and died for our sins and had some sort of the main thing would have been to convince Jews that we didn't need to rebuild the temple. I guess after the temple was destroyed, like Jews, our main part of our religion even till today is we need the temple to fulfill our religion. So from any perspective, like a Judeo perspective or a Roman perspective, that Jesus as a psyop and saying like, no, Jesus was the last sacrifice. Jesus was sacrificed for the sins of humanity, and you no longer need to sacrifice animals in the temple in Jerusalem to have atonement for sins, even though the scripture in the Jewish tradition clearly says that you could only have atonement for sins through sacrifices in the temple. That would be the most likely explanation for the psyop of Jesus, if it was done by the Romans or by dissident Jews, was to convince the Jewish population at large to give up hopes of trying to rebuild the temple.
Interesting. So yeah, I did send Means of Destruction the link. I don't know, he hasn't been able to make it on lately, but I did talk to him on his show.
I saw, I didn't watch it, but yeah, I saw you streamed and talked a little bit about, I'm not sure what you even talked about, but if you want to go talk about that a little bit and tell people what they might learn if they watch that. Ekin Defi, well, hello. So I see some new names in the chat, so why don't we try to address, so, Bubblegum as usual, so Cracker Carl Bumpkin, I'm not sure if that's the same Bumpkin from Politically Provoked. We could also talk about Politically Provoked. I guess he's saying he's like a racist, also kind of like white nationalism as a psyop, January 6th type thing, like CIA. Did you see that Patriot Front march in Washington?
I don't
That,
think
like
so.
everyone's claiming is like FBI hoax, where like 200 white nationalists.
Oh, maybe I did because nobody was overweight, right?
That also, but yeah, last Sunday, like everybody in like matching uniforms and masks and American flags, and like, yeah, no one was fat. Like marching in front of the White House, and like Joe Rogan said like this is definitely like FBI or something like that, but like psyop type thing to scare Americans. I've mentioned The Outer Limits. Was a really good science fiction show in the 60s, 70s, like the Twilight Zone original Star Trek, and they have a psyop episode which is possibly truthful. Some people claim that I forget the name of like the supposed saucer in Nevada, the Roswell saucer or something like that, but like that the CIA creates a fake alien landing in order to unify America, and they draw lots, and one of the government officials agrees to go through this like surgery transformation to become the alien, and then they have like a fake flying saucer land, and he comes in, and God forbid his wife so it's a pretty good episode of the original Outer Limits. But that understanding a psychological operation, like the Roswell. Are you familiar with the Roswell supposed alien saucers in Nevada?
It's like Area 51 or 60. Oh man.
Yeah. So a lot of people claim that that was a government psyop, and the purpose was to scare the public into unifying behind the U.S. government. Like, oh, there's these aliens coming, and so you have to. We need a strong U.S. government who will be able to protect us from the aliens. But yeah, so white nationalism, January 6th, a lot of these things also like it's a psyop. Really, the government officials. Like, there's not really this rising white nationalist movement. It's some sort of government or Russian psyop. Juminati on Ralph was talking about Russian psyops in terms of divide and conquer, using anti-Semitism in America as a divide and conquer strategy. So I'm not sure if this bumpkin, but yeah. So welcome, new in the chat, Daryl Frost. Welcome. If you're friends with Bubblegum, Iron Chair to here, Chair Tier. Also, new name in the chat. I'm not sure, George. New name in the chat. Effluent for you. I'm not sure, is it Fluent from Ralph's chat or he's a regular in our chat? If I've seen him, I think I've seen him from Ralph's chat, but maybe he's
I thought they were from Luke's, but Bubblegum's like, I've ever looked at my maracas and wonder how it got that way. It's like they're mine, dude. Brain.
Yeah, it's related to chunking theory. You mean like the CIA in terms of actually government propaganda, versus historically understanding things or conspiracy things like Alex Jones type stuff. Adam Green, Charles Moskowitz, even politically provoked Todd, I think on Wednesday, has a weekly panel on conspiracies. But how you chunk together information in a psychological operation is basically working on the frailties of the human mind, like we mentioned we mentioned before. We brought up the moon appearing bigger on the horizon. That seems to be an optical illusion. But certain pieces of information where the government might know that people are likely to take this information and draw certain implications from it, and therefore would release false information, like the Patriot Front. Like, God forbid, they want to scare America into the threat of rising white nationalism for whatever reason. So it's saying, okay, white nationalism, let's say, is not really rising, it's not really a threat, but for certain control purposes of the U.S. population, they want us to think that it's rising. Therefore, they would create like a fake rally on Washington, D.C. that like obviously looks fake. Like, what the hell kind of white nationalist would have marched on Washington, D.C.? Like, no one was fat and all wearing the same clothing, getting into U-Hauls or something like that. And like their webpage, you're not allowed to, nobody knows each other's names, or these various things. That is, and no, it can't, like, it's not really like some sort of white nationalist organization. It's some sort of government psyop that's meant to scare the U.S. citizenry into believing a certain way, so that they could direct the course of history, current events in the direction that they want, basically by unifying the American public in the direction they want the American public to be unified, by scaring us to some sort of common threat that doesn't actually exist. I mean, that would be, if it was a psyop, that would be your understanding of how it would work as a psyop.
Sure, yeah. I'm not denying, I'm just not familiar with this idea. Well,
you can't know whether
sure.
like, okay, like, who are these, like, who are these people? Why are they doing it? Is it organic? Like, should we be scared that like God forbid there's Nazis and white nationalists rising all over? Or is it more likely that it was government orchestrated in order for some sort of purpose that is, called a psychological operation that is disingenuous?
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to show something, or you want me to give my breakdown on politically provoked? And like, I studied their history, and it's actually kind of an interesting history. I could try to be quick, or if you want,
take as much time as you want. I'll play the video with memes and I'll put closed captions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I watched Politically Provoked was giving an interview, and so I guess they had a Facebook group where they just discussed politics, and then at some point when COVID-19 happened, they decided to have a weekly live stream, and it was 6 people, and I'm not sure if Justin, Todd, Brittany, and 3 other people, or maybe there was original and Todd came later, but I think, let's say there was 6 people originally. I think Justin, Todd, and Brittany are from the original 3. And when the COVID-19 lockdowns happened, they started to do a weekly live stream, and it was mostly leftist. Like Todd had a little bit, was more on the right wing, and so when COVID-19 started happening, they had a weekly live stream where they had kind of debates on political topics similar to what they're doing now. And most of the people were on the left besides Todd. And so they recruited, or someone came to argue from the right-wing perspective. And it's this guy, Andrew Wilson from The Crucible, that's going to be interviewing the host of Modern Day Debates tomorrow night that I've mentioned. Like, even The Crucible, I've mentioned it many times now. And so this character, Big Papa Fascist, that I'm not sure he's like a fascist, but like a right-wing leanings, although I think he's not racist, he's multicultural. But he was arguing from a right-wing perspective, kind of like anti, but he was having good results. And I guess he was beating a lot of the people on the left that he was arguing about, and it was regular. So I guess they had their weekly live stream, and this would have been going back over a year ago. And for like every week, this guy Wilson was debating the leftist mostly in their group, and I mean, I guess Todd also, and the right was winning. And at a certain point, they ran out of people on the left to debate them, and so I guess they got into a little bit more edgy content, possibly some racial stuff, and they got kicked off of Facebook. They said they got kicked off of Facebook like 5 times, and so they switched to YouTube. And you could see their YouTube Politically Provoked in their history. And in the beginning, they had kind of normal political debates, like abortion, immigration, and it was kind of leftist with like the Black Republican, Todd, who isn't kind of like Deshaun. He's not really that Republican, but some right leanings and some conspiratorial leanings, and then this guy Mio, and a non-race realist, I'm not sure his exact politics, had a stream that they called Little Timmy, which was this question. Little Timmy, I guess, is the little white boy growing up in the multicultural society, and what happens after America becomes majority dark-skinned, and you have little Timmy, growing up in a minority white place. And I guess Brittany is a mother to a male blue-eyed child, and Mio scared her. What's going to be of her son? He's going to get beat up and bullied for being white. And so she got red-pilled, so to say, on the race issue, kind of like Brundlefly. Brundle, he's like, he's got his baby with blonde hair and blue eyes, and he's scared about his son's future. So Brittany was kind of like Brundle, although she said it was specifically this debate, Mio and what he called Little Timmy. But it's basically the same Brundlefly type thing, where he's seeing anti-white sentiment, and he sees his son with blonde hair and blue eyes, and he's scared for his son's future, and therefore becomes like a far right activist. So that was maybe like 4 months ago. As I guess Destiny also. So Big Papa Fascist is beating all of their people in their Facebook groups, like their group of leftists who debate, that they found this guy Andrew Wilson, Big Papa Fascist, who is defeating all of their people in their group. So they recruit Destiny to debate against them, and maybe they also end up getting Vouch, and those are big names. So once they get Destiny on their channel, they get way more viewers. So then they get into bigger circles, and they start getting more people. So it moves from just kind of like a Facebook group to larger internet personality fame, and then I guess the first time that it was actually Jennifer who asked me if did I see the Richard Spencer debate on abortion, and I looked that up where Richard Spencer debated Zen Shapiro. So then they have
the debate I didn't see that I asked you if you saw.
Yeah, so that was the first time I checked their channel to see like Richard Spencer debated abortion. It was like, okay, so I searched that. I checked it out. That was the first debate I watched on their channel. I had seen Zen Shapiro because I heard of the Crucible, because I saw like JF and Cisco and other people were on the Crucible. He was already having some big names. So then they started getting a lot of these right after they had Richard Spencer on, they started getting a whole bunch of right-wing figures, including some of the old Luke Ford crew, like Norvin and OV. So Norvin was on, and he mentions my name. And I think I shared that. I was like, Please Provoke had Norvin on last night, and it's got like, thousands of views. And then the next week I get a link, like Norvin's like, you gotta get this rabbi Doooovid. And I get a link. Like Twitter, Brittany sends me the link, so I joined the show, and there's a lot of these characters that I remember from Luke Ford that are now on Politically Provoked, and it's kind of like alt-right Mike, base take as he's calling himself now, is around, and it's kind of like a lot of these old Luke Ford Worski type racial counter-Semitic debates, and so they recruit me, and so I get right back in the middle of defending the Jews, and so their channel's growing, and so they start making money. So now at this point, Brittany has quit her job, or I don't know, her employment situation, and now she is like full-time working for Politically Provoked, and she's getting paid. Like Todd and Justin, this is the interview they did that they posted that I got most of this information. So Todd and Justin are still working, involved. They're from the original people from the Facebook group, and they have agreed to use the money that they're making to pay Brittany. So it looks like they're going full-time hosting debates. Brittany was saying like they've studied the game. They've been speaking with other streamers. Brittany was on Ethan Ralph this Monday, Ralph Retort, and I hooked him up with Luke Ford. Claire was on. I got him Adam Green, so like moving into the booking agent, because I guess they're relatively new to these internet debates. Like me and Jennifer have been following this from the Worski days, so we're familiar with a lot of these names. So I've even talked with a lot of these people, so I've been booking them interviews. I could probably book Jennifer if she wants, but she's not really political, so it may not be a good fit. But
it's
in
one
fact,
of those
they had
things where I just don't see the value proposition. I don't see the chance of me changing a mind as very high.
Yeah, and the topic, like whether they do something.
Like,
well, I mean, if they had to debate on reincarnation or something like that.
Or the Aryan invasion theory, God forbid, would just be horrible, because anybody who looks into that, is going to understand.
Yeah, I'm saying even like a pretty smart, educated guy, Edward Dutton, wasn't even familiar with Aryan invasion theory. It's like let him like.
He only knows that the Indian caste system is extremely racist, and thank God
saying, like,
for the
most
Raj.
people,
Thank God for it.
Like saying, like most people haven't. You have to go to like Harvard and Yale, and the Hindu, Indian study departments to know that this is still what they teach. But like most Westerners, they don't even know that this is what they teach. But I mean, back to the Politically Provoked. I'll wrap it up.
It flatters the ego, right? It's. I mean,
Well, let me
this
wrap
is the
up
most
Politically
BTFO
Provoked
thing.
Let me finish before we get sidetracked into possible debates to revive. Looks like they're going full time. They're trying to make a thing out of it. they kind of like, I think they like that woman Kays that was on the panel you debated on pantheism, debated pro-life on abortion. I think that was Friday night. So James, is going to be on Big Papa Fascist show tomorrow night, and so he was a regular on Politically Provoked when there was still a Facebook group for months. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see some sort of cross-pollination between Modern Day Debate and Politically Provoked. Even though it's only at 7,000 subs, it's already one of the bigger platforms, and they're doing it constantly. So it's not like James making some money going for a PhD, doing it like 2 or 3 nights a week. Politically Provoked is doing it like 7 days a week, and sometimes even multiple ones a week. And they're doing interviews, and they're letting new people on, and they're making money. They're even paying Brittany to do it. So it could be it's going to grow, and they're they understand the censorship. So martial law is going to, God forbid, to be debating against Holocaust revisionism, God forbid, and they're going to do that in Odyssey, and they have immigration regular debates. So it looks like I appeared on the pop on last night, so I'm trying to promote them, work together with them. Although, like, I like more serious debate, but I think they're going to go for more like the Jerry Springer. I think they're going to go a little of each. Like, I think they want to make money, and the Jerry Springer type stuff probably makes more money. So they're probably going to go more towards that. But I think they also want to, be a little bit serious about politics and intellectual. So, I thought it was exciting. So I give the breakdown of their history and kind of where they're going and their current status. I'm not sure how much money they're making, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're making even a few $100s a week. Like, I doubt Brittany's getting paid much, but it's possible that they could pull it together, make a living. I'm not sure if it'd be like JF and Worski, where he probably even made a few $100,000 that one year, if they'd be able to rake in money like that. But they might even be able to make hundreds of dollars a week, or and then if they have multiple people, they have to split it through. But unlike Charles, they got their tech better. They've recruited somebody. They're making a web page. They're have like all these different servers, and they've already hired someone, Brittany, to work full time. So I thought that is interesting. So we'll probably be seeing more of it. And as of now, I have pretty positive working relations relatively with them. Although I left their Discord group because it just wasn't serious, like the pop on last night. Like I try to be a serious person. I read books and research and like flowing, and so I don't want to waste my time on kind of like low tier arguments. So I'm not in the Discord, and I encourage debate. So even low quality debates is better than no debate, because debate is extremely important. But I would like to encourage them to try to make higher, more quality programs, and that people should take debate as a serious intellectual endeavor, and that means research, reviewing, studying, flowing. And unfortunately, I don't think, as far as I know, at least no one has told me, none of the people have taken those recommendations seriously, but they have been willing to work together. Like everyone I've recommended to book, they've been willing to book, and they let me on. We've been relatively friendly, and I think like they might use me in the future for JQ debates. I'll be willing to do. So like if Jennifer did, and I mentioned Jennifer, I even added her to the Discord, but she was scared and didn't join the Discord. I mentioned her topics as like reincarnation, pantheism, Aryan invasion theory. So just like modern day debates, like they have like that Arjun got on with Christian groups, or more philosophically things. That's probably the direction I would do. Both, like Ben Watkins' Theology Unleashed, which is pretty serious. Capturing Christianity, some of these type things. I think it's probably a better venue for me and Jennifer. We probably have to build up. Like I'm now over 2,000 subs. Adam Green's going to have me on again, I think, next Thursday. So I might start streaming more. Jennifer's over 1,000 subs. Claire Caw, going up. She's got a chronoule. She just got another strike. So she's on her second another channel, but so I think
yeah,
there's
what did it?
She claimed it was Ralph who striked her. She was like stream sniping Ralph, and he copyrighted her or something. I mean, I guess he banned her in her chat, and so he doesn't let her on, and so she decided to stream his stream while she was streaming and say bad things about him. So he decided to.
Wait a minute. She was streaming his stream, pausing it, shitting on him, and then starting it over? Is that right? Because I didn't see this, but is that what happened?
She was doing commentary on his stream, and he copyright struck her. She is banned. She's not allowed on his show, and she's banned on his chat. So he was streaming. So she was streaming his stream and doing commentary that was largely negative, and he did a copyright claim, and that gave her a strike. So she can't stream on her channel now. And that's why she's streaming on this new channel she called Secular Chronism.
Oh dear.
So Elliot's interview today was on the Secular Chronism stream. But I mean, Claire has, I think, more subs than Jennifer. But Jennifer's broke 1,000 subs, and she's almost at 1,100. So I mean, eventually, I think I'm going to get rid of the tenant in my house. One of the reasons why I'm not streaming now, because it's just kind of hard to have distractions or timing to talk for hours. For background noise, or just hard to concentrate with other things going on. So hopefully my tenant's going to be moving out in the next month, and then I'll probably do some more Ask the Rabbis or public study sessions, although I'll still stream some interviews. So Henry Doktorsky, I just got his Gods, Guns, and Gold Gods and Guns, The History of New Vrindavan. It's going to be a 10-volume series, and he came out with volume 5, then volume 3, then volume 1, then volume 2, then volume 4. So I've interviewed him now 3 times, I think, or two times I've interviewed him, maybe 3 times already. I think I've interviewed him 3 times now, and he has other books, Killing for Krishna and 11 Naked Emperors. So I'm going to finish volumes 2 and 4. And then I'll interview him again on his complete history of New Vrindavan. Maybe that'll be towards the end of December, early January. So that's the only, but I might try to do a few more interviews, but right now I'm not pushing it. So it'd only be if I'm speaking to somebody and, decide for an interview. I did a lot of streaming, Zobita's got a big crowd. I was on Ralph's, and, I'm working the London crowd. I was talking about Speaker's Corner the last time. Zobita, even though she's in hijab, she's no foreigner. You could find her every week on Speaker's Corner. So I've been working the Speaker's Corners crowd with Ralph. But I'm not sure where that's really going to lead. So it's interesting. I've spoken to a lot of people that are involved in Speaker's Corner, which is that's a real life debate circuit. So Politically Provoked is an e-circuit, which is good. Speaker's Corner is a real life debate circuit. However, most of the people on Speaker's Corner also have an e-presence. Even Joseph Cohn is, he's really like Speaker's Corner. He has an e-presence, but I mean, he's an IRL Speaker's Corner debater. So, working the London Speaker's Corner, we'll see if that leads to anything. So I think it just means meeting new people, some new personalities. Jennifer's not monetized to Iron Charter. She could be monetized. She has 1,000 subs, which means she could stream live from her cell phone. But you have to actually submit for monetization, which we've discussed and I recommended, but Jennifer did not submit for monetization, which she would probably receive, but so she's actually not monetized. as you can see, there's no super chat option there.
Yeah.
So that's all I got for this week. If I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to discuss, or if you want to discuss, you had any comments on Politically Provoked, Brittany going full time, or the possibility of something that you would debate and try to sign up to do a debate on their thing.
I'm not sure what I would debate.
And you would have to pick from their lineup for your opponent. So it's interesting, Marshall. It'd be kind of random. Do you really want to debate like Marshall on Aryan invasion theory, or like Norvin?
Marshall is not going to go against me, and Norvin and I have debated that many times, and he wasn't super nice. Remember the time I went on Doofus the dumbass and then had to leave because he got so triggered, and then had to bring Norvin on for some sort of like damage control?
Well, I think you debated the Aryan invasion theory actually was on Norvin's channel.
Oh, I've debated it many times. I mean, that was the probably
Or Claire
major
or
contributing
Babs, but-
factor of speaking to those types of people in the first place, to make it
I mean, the
clear that
reality is
I'm pushing back on this.
the reality is I don't think anyone else on Politically Provoked had even heard of Aryan invasion theory. So like if you
Oh yeah, I was
wanted,
gonna say earlier, don't you
if
think
you
it
wanted
plays
to
into the
debate-
blue eye thing? I just don't want to forget, but don't you think the AIT really plays into the blue eye thing?
well, yeah. So I'm mentioning that your only options would probably be people that it would probably be OV, Marshall, or Norvin. So like as of now, like they don't have an Aryan invasion pro speaker expert that like your options would be probably like Marshall, OV, or Norvin. And so I was saying at that point it's not worth it for you to get on Politically Provoked to be pro AIT if it's going to be Marshall. If your choices of debating against is Marshall, Norvin,
I'd
or,
rather go dumpster diving in a flat
OV.
Earth debate.
Well, I mean, you could do both. I'm saying it's not like a either or. And saying like, no, I don't think they're going to have a flat Earth debate on Politically Provoked. I mean, they might if they're making money but and then like I don't know if they choose you to do that. I mean, maybe they would since you did it on. But I just mentioned like if it's reincarnation, maybe they would have a generic person that would debate against like Zen Shapiro or something would just step up and he'll debate against reincarnation.
Yeah, and then it feels
Yes.
like beating up a 5-year-old and it's cringy.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying like you have to your choices from their limited roster.
Right.
I'm
so
just making logistics. I'm not asking for your snide comments. I'm saying from a logistical factor, you have your topics, and then your opponent is going to be from their roster.
and don't think any of them are going to want to either lose to me for the first time or again in an Aryan invasion theory debate.
No, I'm pretty sure that my guess would be. I mean, maybe Norvin wouldn't do it, but my guess is OV.
There's no way he would want to damage his cred.
Well, I mean, you're
by
just talking trash,
losing.
but like,
Oh,
no, I'm
please.
pretty.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
pretty.
so you can talk
No,
trash, but
Well, I'm
I
saying you're
wanna
just
throw
talking
it-
trash. I'm
okay.
telling you, as the booking agent, that I'm pretty sure Marshall or OV would do it. You could talk trash all you want by saying like, no,
Well,
I'm
let's
pretty
see
sure.
how many people have challenged me to an
So
Aryan invasion theory
if you're
debate.
saying
How
that
many
you
have
want to
actually
do
happened?
it, if you're saying that you want to do it but they don't want to do it, I'm telling you, you're probably incorrect. And that if you want to do it and you just don't think they want to do it, but you would do it, that like you could probably already be booked for next week. So you're
Already
just
done it.
talking trash for no reason. You're saying like if you're saying you don't want to do it, but you're saying if you do want to do it, like I'll book it, and I'm telling you it's probably going to be OV or Marshall. And like your mind reasoning or reading their intention is meaningless because I'm telling you, I think they'll do it. And like I'll set it up. Like I'm not so worried about. I'm pretty sure I'd be able to set it up. So I mean, I'm laying it out. Do you want to do it or not?
Well, not right now, thanks.
Yeah, and I was saying if it was reincarnation, and it's like against Zen Shapiro, like you want to do it or not? Like
I
didn't ask him.
almost didn't do this flat Earth debate because I thought it was potentially going to damage my image. I'm not going to go. Zen Shapiro is going to be like cringy. I just.
Yeah, I'm saying like I don't call him like a mainstream Christian that rejects reincarnation that would debate against you, and that that is a versatile debater that would probably be able to do it, because I don't think there's anyone in their roster that like specializes in debating against reincarnation who's talking about a versatile one of their people on their roster that's a versatile debater that would probably be able to do it if they wanted. And so I just think like reincarnation. Yeah, probably be like. I mean, I don't even know if Zen Shapiro would do it. He might. Yeah, but be someone like just be someone from their roster that would take the negative. Unless you're providing the other person also. But like I mean, if it's going to be on their channel, it's probably going to be someone from their roster. Just if you have your opponent, then it's more harder to book if you're booking yourself and your opponent. You're essentially booking yourself for someone else that's already on their roster. So they already have OV and Marshall on their roster. They already have Zen Shapiro on their roster.
Sorry about that. I had a bit of a problem with my OBS there. Yeah, I guess they do, and I'm.
You're just not interested.
Well, I enjoyed the one I had last night, but I didn't really enjoy the one with that guy about evolution because there was no real debate. He just thought he was going to explain, like he thought he was dealing with a young Earth creationist or something. I don't want to waste my time on
that guy. You're talking like Mark, the one that became your partner for the last debate.
No, the one that Teach set me up with.
Okay, but I'm saying Mark was the one that you debated against.
Oh no, that debate was fine. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the one on TJ's channel with that guy. They didn't really have any. I feel like it would be that type of debate where it's just a complete dumpster fire. Like I understand the one last night was sort of jokey, but it was semi-serious teaching. But that other one is just a complete dumpster fire, and I didn't enjoy that. So I don't think I would enjoy. The whole point of talking to those people was to get it out of the way early. First worst, best for last. That's my saying. So. Yeah, Jen Shapiro. There you go. I can't believe that one hasn't surfaced yet. I don't think I've actually heard that one. It's a good one, though. So, yeah, I'm not sure what else we can... Let's see. What else we can say? I mean, I wanted to talk more about the arguments behind flat Earth. Let's say I will do the Aryan invasion thing if people do more studying into history. You're always talking about people doing their homework. Well, get people to do some homework on this subject, because so far it hasn't been anything more than shit talking. And you know full well I've challenged people to the Aryan invasion theory debate. And if people want to look this up, Aryan invasion theory is an obvious colonial propaganda tool used in India and abroad, and appeals to certain people's vanity and the oft mentioned hypothesis of Doooovid about the blue-eyed man that he goes on and on and on about, and it's pretty connected to this Aryan invasion theory. It doesn't seem we ever mentioned it in that sense.
So, I mean,
see the link?
I don't even know if there's like mainstream academics like in university that still teach this stuff. And like in these days in university, probably like almost all academics are Indian. But like, no, I mean, it's like it'd probably be Marshall or OV. And like, so
you're obsessed with this one platform. It's like, no, nobody else could familiarize themselves with this debate. It's got to be these random,
Doovid's a booking it, saying like these are people that put themselves on the roster for debates. There's not a big roster, and those are the only people on the roster that probably even heard of this, let alone would take the positive for it. So I mean, like if you actually wanted to reach out to like someone who like an author or an expert in the field like that, like as of now we don't have a venue. Like if you really wanted to advance yourself, like you would have to make some sort of value proposition to like reach out to like a latest author that's like producing new evidence in favor of the Aryan invasion theory. And I don't even know if anyone's doing that. And like they probably wouldn't do it. You probably wouldn't be able to get a mainstream academic to debate you because you're not set up in a way that a mainstream academic would want to debate you. You would have to pay them. So I was saying, as of now, your only options are politically provoked, OV, Norvin, or Marshall. And like if it's no on that, that's fine. And then like if you want to use your own channel to try to promote yourself in these debates, like you will have to find out the academics and actually send emails to them and try to organize it, which as of now, like you're not really cut out to do.
I mean, you could always ask.
Yeah, I'm saying I could book her with who I'm working with. And so like I told you who your possible opponents are. So if that's not interesting to you, fine, just say no. And saying, so if you said like I want to debate, but I want to debate the biggest names in mainstream academia, like, well, obviously your channel and your setup right now is not in such a way that the mainstream names in academia are going to debate you on it. I mean, even Stephen Knapp, who has written like 30 books. He's written a book against the Aryan invasion theory, and he's the head of the International Association of Hindus and the president of Detroit ISKCON. I'm not even sure he could find like an academic that would do a formal debate on Aryan invasion theory. It's unlikely that like some university head of some Indian studies department would take a debate with anybody other than somebody else that's part of a university Indian studies department.
According to market theory, Doovid would be correct that you can, if somebody wants to debate something, you can always find somebody more or less. Might not always be the person you want, but
let me just say, let's say if I wanted to have the debate, and I think it's super important that we get to the bottom of whether consciousness is a process or an attribute. And I'm just like obsessed with it, and I like, let's debate about it, but it's like nobody even is going to benefit. I'm saying that if nobody is talking about the stuff other than random fringe people who are using it to justify incredibly bigoted views, and who's I've already stomped numerous times, I don't want to add fuel to that fire.
Well, the value proposition, if you have someone that already, the reason why those people might debate you is because their own self-promotion and their promotion of their rather marginalized ideas. And so just to give them a chance to get exposure and be on a platform and an audience bigger than their own, that they would probably agree, OV, Norvin, or Marshall, one of them would probably agree to debate you on politically provoked. Like, I'm not sure, but I'm just guessing that would be able to arrange that. You're saying if you wanted on your own venue, even like modern day debates, like I'm not sure modern day debates, if you would be able to work together with them to be like, I have a really good idea, I want to debate Aryan invasion theory, and you were going to pay $5,000 to a major author in academia to appear on modern day debate to debate you, that maybe it would be possible, but like it would literally
Look, I think I'd need more coaching before I do that.
But I'm saying like you wouldn't be able to, you'd have to pay them like $5,000 because that's how people make their living. I'm telling you, like as a fact, like they wouldn't do it unless you paid them. And even modern day debate.
So I've already won the debate. Then I'm willing to defend it.
Well, I mean,
for
you can
free.
have your
If they have to
fantasies
get
in your
paid,
own head.
I win.
You can have your fantasies of your own head. But I'm saying like the fact is there are people in academic institutions who teach this stuff and write books on it. And they're not going to debate some random person on YouTube. So if you had some sort of inter-university thing that was through the university and through their departments, which you don't because you're not affiliated with the university, so that wouldn't be possible, that you would have to pay them. And or if they had the ability to just appear on your channel, they're not going to appear on your channel just to be debunked. Like you would have to give them
I'm not
softball
saying I want to
interview
bring some
and help
random
them
on the
sell their
channel to
books.
like rail
Not
them
a
about
random. I'm
Aryan
talking
invasion theory.
about one of the biggest names in the theory, someone that's written books on it and has an academic post. And like none of those people are going to appear to be debunked. They would appear to sell some books or to reach an audience and things like you don't. If you're incapable or don't want to comport yourself like that, there's 0% chance that you're going to be able to do that. So let's just say your options are basically politically provoked and Norvin OV or Marshall.
Okay, so I choose nothing, obviously.
So you'll get nothing.
It's fine. I don't think anybody actually gives a shit, as I said about the debate with the metaphor earlier about consciousness being a process or an attribute. It's like, it's still there, whether or not people
do care.
believe
People
in it
write
or
books
whatever.
on the subject. There's people who are experts in the subject.
As you said yourself, nobody knows anything about it in the average person. Yeah, there's experts, but they're just random, completely irrelevant people that nobody cares
Not
what they
random. They're people usually embedded within university departments, academia, think tanks, and that's how they make their living. And they would have to have a value proposition, namely you paying them or you helping them sell their books. So I mean, it's just the way things work. Like I was mentioning, you can't get a Hollywood, like if a person's actually part of Hollywood and part of the Screen Actors Guild, by contract, they can't just appear on your show. Like it's like, oh, let's see if we get Leonardo DiCaprio on Week in Review. I mean, like he's under contract. He can't just appear on anybody's show. And like a band, if they're signed with Sony or BMG, they can't just pop on Week in Review, even if they're your buddy. Like they have a contract. And so people in official posts in academia or think tanks have to do things in the systemized way that's laid out for them. And as say, like generally, like Arjun's kept asking me about Ed Dutton. Like, how do I get in contact with Ed Dutton? And I said, well, you got to pay him. And he's like, well, how'd you get him on your channel? It's like, well, someone paid him. And, so if you don't want to pay him, it's unlikely you're going to speak to him. So if you really want to speak to him, you got to pay him. And like modern day debates, they realize then they pay. And it's because these people like politically provoke. They saw that they want to make their money doing what they enjoy. And they come up with basically a standard that they only appear when they get paid. And, so if you don't want to work in the confines of how the majority of people in institutions work, like which means paying them, you have to work with people outside of the mainstream.
I think what Doovid's saying is sometimes you got to slug it out to move your way up.
No, you just slug it out. You got to pay. You got to work within the systematized your way. And in the modern Western world, that means paying them.
I mean, she could just kind of debate people and just gain clout that way as well, to the point where she becomes such a name that people are like, oh, Church of Entropy. Oh, well, she raffle stomped this particular
How about
person.
Jen Sharf, guys?
you
Church
gotta get
Entropy
paid.
is the channel name. Guys.
Okay, my apologies.
Well, I mean, if we're
It's like
going to
at the
be
end of the day,
if we're
people
going to be
get
submitting
paid.
something to be whatever, do we want to be going citation Church of Entropy, or do we want to be going with Jen Sharf?
But I mean, you're incorrect. Like people would get paid. Like even if she became big, then it would be so big that there would be, someone who would be willing to put up the money, or she would have more than enough money floating around that she would be happy to pay the speaker's fee for the people.
I'm only going to do this stuff for principled reasons.
Okay, so you're never going to speak to anybody mainstream if you're not willing to pay them.
Okay, great.
You have your own fantasy about like, oh, you're the best, and like, but like, or I mean, if for whatever reason you don't accept.
Yeah, my own fantasy that just everybody else happens to live in as well.
Well, we'll do it. People will actually come on. They don't always need money. It's just money is an extremely strong incentive, especially if they have no idea, they have no primary reason for going there, especially if they think, okay, I might lose this. This might hurt my reputation. Why would I go on other than money?
Well, I think because all experts in the field basically do it for their profession. I mean, you could argue that's why science is biased, but I mean, the fact is that almost all the experts in the various fields do that for their living.
Well, so not always for money. It may translate into money via other means, but
no, I'm saying they do it for their living. Like Hameroff, He does it for his living. He's the head of a department. He gets paid from his institute at University of Arizona. Like, I mean, some people retired, like Penrose or something. He's an author, but any expert who's like the only people who study area invasion theory are university professors. They get paid from a think tank or a department. That's what they do for their living, and they make supplement income by giving speeches. And they also usually have contracts that they can't just speak to whoever they want. It's usually they have to get an okay from their department to do it.
Well, I mean that is like a lot of places and everything. Once you hit a certain level of professionality, I mean, yeah, no,
I'm talking
that
experts.
does
Can you name experts in any field that aren't professional? That means that they don't do it for their living, and especially in academic. That means that they're affiliated with a university or think tank.
Well, when you say do it for a living, are you directly equating that out to cash, or the fact that they don't want to harm their reputation, which might end up harming their income down the line?
Well, I mean that their salary, that they part of an institution like a university or think tank, that like they literally do it for the living. That's their job. They're part of the Department of Indian Studies or Department of Philosophy or Department of Consciousness Studies, and every day when they go up and they go to their office, that's what they do. And if they rise to be a recognized expert in the field, that basically all the recognized experts in the field do this for their job. They get up every day, go to some institute, and teach, study, and write, and get a paycheck.
Right,
and
right.
also that they're obligated to a board of directors or some sort of a board that that they have a contract that's in that not only that they're under contract, and the contract probably has provisions about public speeches that they're allowed to give. It's like a university professor can't just speak to anybody they want to. There's provisions in their contract.
Well, I mean, they could have tenure.
Even if they have tenure, there's still provisions in their contract
Yeah.
about what they're allowed to do.
Well, I think we're kind of getting stopped up is it sounds like, and again, I realize this isn't necessarily what you're saying, is in order to get a professional on, you got to pay them. That hasn't been my experience. You can develop a relationship, and money
You've booked a
can help.
professional to speak? I mean, like,
Professor Keating said he would come on. I just
But
haven't reached back out to him. No, not yet. I meant to reach out to him. I had emailed him, and he said he would be happy to come on. This was before, and then I had kind of gotten to Thad's thing. I had Thad on.
I just rather send a delegation, frankly. I'm too controversial. Plus, I don't want to be any more out there than I already am.
It's not really. It depends. I mean, there's fame. There's
listen
infamy,
to me. You know I'm right. You know I'm right. Do you not?
You have a habit of agitating people in a certain type of way. You rub
I meant about physics.
Oh, well, I feel like it's because you were throwing some of the more classical folks and you were throwing them under the bus in very mean words. People didn't take kindly to that, at least from what I saw. Again, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Sometimes you have to show people tough love, and I hope in time they'll be like, "Oh, Jen was just showing us tough love." But the fact that I showed the tough love now means I cannot be the delegation. Someone else has to be the delegation for me. If you believe in the idea, and if it's only me that believes in my own ideas, it's irrelevant and in a pure egotistical exercise in egotistical narcissism.
Then your delegation is pay also. So I mean, it's like if your sponsors or so your delegation. Like,
I've never once paid a delegation in all my lifetimes. Why would I start
now? I'm saying that your delegation would pay for you. That it's saying, oh, we booked you would debate with this person. It's like, well, how'd you do it? We paid them.
So I had two quick things, if that was okay to go over. We could do consciousness first, or we could do your diagram, either or. I feel like we should do your diagram first, because I feel like that would be a quicker point, whereas getting into consciousness can go on forever.
Oh gosh, you used your better judgment. Did you need a full screen?
I did. So I'm gonna step up. I'm listening.
Okay.
Awesome.
My thing is, I'm sitting back and I'm like, okay, you started to explain your diagram. He's had it put out in more of the square valences, or however you would like to describe them there. And I'm sitting back, I'm like, okay, if that is 59, and we need 2 of those to come up with 118, I'm like, okay, what if we arrange the other one to basically just intersect at another way? Might that explain why we're kind of end up with those? Why is it that something can only move at 90 degrees? Why does it end up being almost square-like in a way? And I'm wondering if you were to kind of take 2 of those, if that might explain some of the orthogonality that we're kind of like seems to always come up. I'm curious your thoughts, or maybe that was where you already at.
Can you give me an example of orthogonality that always comes up?
The Euler's number, or the Euler-Maccheroni constant, and that thing. It's
hold on a minute. What does that have
okay.
to do with orthogonality? That's a base that has the same as its right. You know what E is.
I for some reason I think it comes down to, it's like when you're looking at
D
these
to the
things.
x, e to the x equals e to the x. The differential operator has no effect on e to the x.
Okay.
D to the x, e to the x equals e to the x. So the derivative is equivalent to the identity matrix. We're going to go into matrix verse vibing, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, the 2 things about the matrix, it's number 1, my initial Bayesian perhaps thought would be, there's no way a matrix like that could actually describe actual reality. The number 2 part of that is, if somehow they actually seem to describe reality, which it appears they kind of do, that is absolutely fascinating. And how might that work?
Have you
And that's
looked
where I'm
into the
trying to probe.
eigenvalues thing that I mentioned?
I had opened up that page and I had yet to go through it.
Here's
I
what
looked
we
at
want
it.
to do. We want to find the world expert on eigenvalues and vectors. So the eigenbros, that's the starting point, and we want to throw the gauntlet out to see if there's a bigger expert.
All right, that works for me.
Because
Okay,
people are going to be like,
I'm
Jim's
happy with that.
lying again about math.
No,
and I don't want to deal with it.
I am throwing stuff out there into the ether to see if other folks might have more information. Because this is the thing. I've
never heard anyone
something.
give my explanation. That's what I'm saying. Like, do you remember when I said you're taking the information from the matrix and putting it into the vector when you're diagonalizing a matrix?
That sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, if you haven't actually gone through the process, you wouldn't remember, because inverting a matrix quite, I don't want to say tedious, but you'd know it if you'd done it, and it's, I don't want to say the basis of computer coding, but inverting matrices is important in computer coding.
I've been far too obsessed with seeing the relationship between pi and e and their roots and everything. And again, probably not going anywhere.
And what I say about numerology.
Yes, exactly. You could just
what I say about
warp your mind. It's going to drive you mad.
I said it's the first step towards insanity. Okay, it's the crypto, it's the astrology, and now you're going into mind to God beautology, aka numerology.
For some reason, I feel like I was given a Cult of Doowoodism bumper sticker by somebody before in Florida. I'm not sure that's related, but let's go on to something that I feel a little bit more confident about.
I can just see you with a shirt in 10 years and it says entropy abides on it, and you're just sitting there like, oh man, I used to be so uptight.
It's well, maybe that might be the case. Though the next thing let's bring up that I feel a little bit more competent about.
No, you're
silly.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard anyone say that this entire lifetime. Go ahead. I was actually talking to chat.
No. Here's the thing. I'm going to share videos now. Here we go. Okay, we'll do this one first. We'll show Thad's new thing, because this is just something that I noticed, and the algorithm kind of brought me to this thing, and perhaps this is just, I don't know. I'm just curious what you think. We'll play a minute.
Right? If you don't push it hard enough, it's not going to make it over repeat, for example, or whatever. If you need to push waves around together so that they'll make a circle once, then there's a certain amount of energy you'd have to swing things around or push things around just right. And I know I don't want to wave hand waving here, I think you've got to follow me. Okay. But the amount of energy it takes to get something to trace a circle, but now after that circle hits that last point, then they're going to just, not going to keep making a circle, because you minimally made one circle. You have to make enough energy to wrap it around into two circles so that the boundary of the first circle is holding together the part that's trying to fall apart. Right? It's the minimum amount of energy required so that this wrapping now stays.
So basically the whole part about the hyperbolic figure eight's not complement, and basically how he derives like the mass of like the electron, the proton, the neutron it's the balance between falling apart and coming together. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing this one right now, and I'm gonna share a real quick other video that happened to come up that I found interesting. And again, it's something to ponder here. And this was, I think, from the Royal Academy. We'll share this and let it play.
And the idea of predictive processing is very simple. It's that you have signals going in both directions in the brain. One direction is from the outside in, from the world deeper and deeper into the brain. And the other direction is the other direction, from the inside out, from the brain back out to the senses and back out to the world. And if you take the inside-out signals and think of those as the predictions, those are the predictions about what's going on. And the outside-in signals, what's coming in and percolating upwards through the brain, those are just the prediction errors. Those are just telling the brain the difference between what it's expecting and what it's getting. And by continually trying to minimize these prediction errors, get rid of them, update its predictions, or change the data to get rid of prediction errors, these predictions collectively settle on the brain's best guess of what's out there, and that turns out to be very close to what Bayesian inference is. But beyond that sort of nice sort of mathematical equivalence, there's a real conceptual message here, which I still find quite puzzling to think about. I mean, we're so used to thinking that perception is this process of just reading out sensory signals. It seems as though the world pours itself into our minds through the transparent windows of our senses. But it's the other way around. What we perceive is coming from the inside out, and the sensory data is just keeping our perceptual best guesses in check.
That's basically it. I just found that interesting, seeing that little diagram with those little, and again, it's just an approximation of vectors. It probably isn't actually measuring any type of function there, but I just find it interesting that one of the fundamental components of apparently our reality is also working with how we construct our fundamental understanding of reality. I just thought it was kind of cool.
So chunking theory, God forbid?
Basically.
Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah. More of just an adaptive update function. It's just things are coming in, we're taking it, we're also applying everything. And again, chunking is probably a major factor there as well, because he goes on into the talk, and it's basically like, there might be something that happened a number of years ago. Do you remember absolutely everything that happened at all moments? No. I mean, that would take up just so much computation in your head and everything. Whereas if an event arises, someone mentions something, it can kind of bring you back and you can kind of recall. Now, how you're recalling that, I mean, that might be up to debate as well. Perhaps you have some realistic... One of the things that I had noticed when I was probably in college was that I had gotten some bubble yum, the watermelon flavored one, because it was totally amazing. And as soon as I popped that one night while I was at work and I was doing some studying, I recalled back when I was a younger child and being on a plane, and I'd be on the plane with like my mother and my brother and stuff, and she would give this, and she would say, chew this memes because this will help when your ears pop and everything as we're going up the altitude. And I just found it interesting that I immediately recalled via taste just that particular memory as well. I was curious at the time how that worked, and I had theorized, like, well, what if you studied with a long-lasting gum, and then you went to take a test, and then you were to chew a very similar type of gum? Would that help you recall what you were studying? That's a completely side tangent, but I just find it interesting that it seems like
intersensorial mnemonic devices. That's not off topic, is it?
I mean,
the fact that these things work to the extent that they do, if you can get a grip on your own experience, you can get insight as to like why they must have worked, right?
I basically started to
the
think
mind
of your
basically
mushroom
has to
diagram.
have some raw compute power that is allowing for these effects to manifest, is my point. I don't think I got that across. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I just find it's interesting that with us being as complex as we are, I mean, who knows compared to what else might be out there as well. but the sheer fact that if we get up to the point where even our minds are functioning in a what seems to be almost a similar way, taking in as well as generating output for how we basically view us. I think it's kind of cool.
Right on.
I'm just, because as soon as I saw this, I'm remembering when you were doing like the thing with like the apple, the mushroom, and everything, and kind of like these might be perhaps some form of an abstraction. And I'm like, okay, if the actual thought process itself, because as soon as you have something and somebody's trying to present like an idea to you that it's not true, but they're laying it out in a way that's like, well, this must be true, and you start experiencing cognitive dissonance. It's kind of like your mind is trying to rejumble and trying to realign and everything, and basically when people's heads hurt, that's very often when they just evolve into just kind of like ad homs and stuff like that, rather than using logic, because sometimes it's easier, perhaps less painful, to just project upon others rather than being like, maybe I need to incorporate this into what's actually real.
Well, people want to cling to their little LARPy notions about gotchas, I guess. Means a lot to them.
I just think it's interesting that if this is perhaps a model, then if perhaps maybe Doovid would have more information on this.
Well, that's the thing. It goes beyond a model. This proves that everything else is a mere model, and that this is more. It is a model too. It's more than one thing at a time. But
when you say it's more than a model, what? Well,
that off-cited dog shit about the map not being the territory.
I've heard of that. I'm still not really sure what that means.
I don't think anyone who's ever used that horrible simile or metaphor, whatever it is, I don't think anyone who's used it has ever known what it meant. But that aside,
sounds good.
I think it's meant to allude to a notion that models are fallible, perhaps.
Well, I mean, if we're making them, of course they're going to be fallible. We're perfectly imperfect creatures.
And if God made them?
Well, I think that would be reality.
Well, you're talking about remembering smells. It's like, it doesn't make sense unless you're talking about mind reading God, granted on a very tiny, pathetic level. Nevertheless, enough to trigger a waterfall cascade of memories.
I mean, it just keeps on going. I don't know. To me, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, if we are living in the holographic universe, and essentially the universe as we know it happens to be perhaps in some form of like the complement of the hyperbolic figure eight's not and everything, and you have that twisting motion itself.
You can't define a hologram. You realize that, right? So you've kicked it into hologram, and it's like, okay, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but now I got a cool word.
It does give +5 buzz points. I will totally give it that, and it gives you that hand wavy motion, everything. I don't currently have. I suppose I should probably think of a better word or something for that or application. But the core point I'm trying to communicate is if you're going through like that little twisty motion that's there in the center that has on the front of his book 44.
Motion. Twisty motion. Don't you understand that the things that can happen always start? I'm going to trigger people here, but in the monad. And the monad is the thing that doesn't change, and the thing that doesn't change is the geodesic. Right.
That broke up a little bit.
Given a certain density, the preferred geodesic will be...
Now you're going to follow the principle of least action.
No.
Go on.
Yes. That's not what predicts this. It's more than that. It's saying that there's 4 phases of GD6, which are predicted by the... Just said it, but anyway.
The monad.
No, the density of energy in the system.
Wait, where'd you just get 4?
I've got them on the screen right now. Are you able to see?
Oh, hold on. No. Let me go back. Let me bring it up.
I think I'm going to call it a week. I'm glad I shared that in Neil Seff video last week as he's been making his rounds. from the bigger names in consciousness, the materialistic explanation. So I'm glad you're watching that, commenting on it. Is anything else, or you guys carry on?
Well, I think we're going to keep talking about consciousness. So maybe you can check it out later if you're interested.
Okay, we'll do. Have a great week. And
You
said, next Sunday, 1 o'clock, I'll have my discussion with Ben Watkins. I should be on Adam Green again Thursday night, 7 p.m. And also, I think Chris wanted to talk to me again. That's like about JQ type stuff, but just a discussion about Buddhism with his friend Jen, another Jen from London, Buddhist. So should be interesting. So have a great week. Good to keep on talking about consciousness. I'm glad if you do set up that interview with Brian Keating, good for that. He's actually the head of his department and raises his own funds. So I forget the name of the name's slipping me now, but the scientist.
The Arthur C. Clarke of Human Imagination, or the Center of Human Imagination, I think.
Well, that one of the richest people in the billionaire who that also.
Oh,
the
yeah,
billionaire
yeah.
who the mathematician
Jim Simons.
Simons. So he's
Simons,
so
yeah.
Keating's is the head of his own institution, and he gets the funding directly from Simons. So he might have the discretion. I mean, it's not quite like tenure, because tenure you're still under contract. So Keating is like more than tenure. He's the head of his own department and direct funded under Simons. So he probably has the discretion to do as he pleases. And if he doing as he pleases meant talking to memes, like, good for you. So take care. Have a great week.
Cool. You as well. My main point that I was trying to communicate, Jen, was I'm sitting there, and very often when you're looking at that model and it rotates around in some of those videos, that center part, that part that's under the twist there, it remains stable. But what if, and again, just postulating here, what if it acted almost kind of like an agitator, if it would? If it could bend and continually
Animating
bend in all
superfluid?
these, I would propose a hyperfluid.
Oh,
in
did I get
this
the word
respect.
wrong again?
No,
I just
no,
need to,
no,
like, get this-
you
I
got
need to get
no,
this
you gave me
tattooed
this.
on myself or something.
You gave me this, and you proposed this. Is basically you were saying basically like the ether before, which
No,
basically I would
no. That's the one who said the thing with the. It's the modelization of entanglement. Remember? Said the object was a.
Well, my thought is if
help me out.
if our basic what we consider the vacuum in basically like what's around the Earth and stuff is a superfluid, at that point it would still be a quanta of extremely low whatever
The
mass
singular
energy.
is quantum, dear. But
Oh,
good job on the other fix.
it may still be. I think in one of the older lectures, perhaps. And again, I might be completely wrong about this, but my thought is, if there would be a level above that, you would have basically a hyperfluid, which would be even more efficient. And again, just postulation there. But if it were to continually twist and everything, wouldn't that also project whatever would be extruded from that, or perhaps? And again, I don't want to use the word hologram again, but I'm going to use it. Whatever would be implemented via that agitation, couldn't that equate out to, I don't know, almost being a superposition just because it was constantly rejiggering itself?
Well, is your heart constantly rejiggering itself into different canonical configurations?
Yeah.
Is it? It's not rotating. That'd be weird.
Well, it does have, it has a regular rhythm, but occasionally it could do so. I'm not a doctor.
I mean, your heart never rotates on the axis of your anything. It heaves. So you said hyperfluid as opposed to, what was the one that...
Superfluid is what we consider as like the ether.
So those are... Hold on a minute. Nobody believes in the ether. So what the hell are you talking about? What's the one where the information travels instantaneously? There's no informational separation on the...
Superfluid.
So that's what the HF8 complement
Well,
itself, right?
technically, I don't think that's true because if you were going to measure
What are the
gravitational
properties
waves,
of that thing for those measurements to be forthcoming from it? That surface needs to have properties for those
I
limit
only
point
found one.
observables that are supposedly the observables of nature to be well defined.
I only found one paper on it. I was only cited one. And again, it's I did through some of the calculations of Wolfram Alpha. It was at just a tiny fraction to I think 40 something decimals above 0 Kelvin, and I'm like, they're making
This
a
is
lot of claims
dubious.
in this paper. They're not explaining everything, but it's. I mean, it might explain a lot. It would explain some of the viewed inertia that you have between different rotational bodies and stuff. So if there is something there, maybe that's why we're observing a 2.73 Kelvin background cosmic microwave.
Don't
And,
you understand
and
how that's just a prediction of energetic universe, that there would be a non-zero 0-point energy?
I mean, isn't that what's supposed to be the Casimir effect, which
Just think about it just think about nothing to begin with, and if the universe is purely energetic, then even the lowest energy state would have a non-zero energy, aka a global non-zero, or cosmological, I guess, non-zero 0-point energy, meaning you would measure some associated thermal energy from the internal. Basically, it's under its own pressure field and letting out a small amount in. I mean, you know what effect this is. You can tell me what's the reason for it. What's the law that makes for this being a necessity? There's only 4 laws, remember. Which
well, I
law?
mean, it's what's going to be conservation of energy.
Uncertainty principle.
Right. Well, that's what I'm trying to postulate. Might that be a factor there? If you got this thing going all around and everything,
Remember how dense it is.
recycling.
Remember how dense it is. That means that 2 quantum systems oscillate. It's always vibrating, and the centers of mass are very close to each other, which means they're in the same quantum state with a very small delta T. And what does that do to delta E? It fans it out. Therefore, you have a overall non-zero 0-point energy, if it's dense enough, which it is.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so you can define.
I realize I completely deviated from consciousness, but.
Well, no, you didn't. You just don't understand how it plays in, because there's something more fundamental than what we're calling consciousness. In another model, consciousness would obviously easily be the fundamental thing if we wanted to. I just want to make it clear that it is model dependent.
Well,
but yeah, the idea is what's real, and you have to think what are the criteria of real. And you can argue that realness is the things that are the animating forces, the primary animating forces. Not the straw man of Platonism, but the basis vectors of reality. How many irreducibly complex identities do I need such that I can make a linear combination of them to generate all the entities I see here, which is also the simplest way to do it, aka it's the diagonalization vectors, eigenvectors, right? And the answer is this.
Go on.
No, it's fine. It's just the most obvious one is the hyperbolic figure eight, because the other ones are kind of trivial. So it's oh, I don't care about this. This means nothing to me. It's a sphere, a circle, boring. But then the hyperbolic figure eight is non-trivial, and it has the apple as well as the mushroom shape. So I'm thinking this could basically be argued to be the basis of reality.
I mean, that's where I go as well. And then if you were going to try to base that off into whatever you want to call it, fields or components of that, it's all right. If you got time.
Well, no, there's no field, remember, because a field presupposes space. So these things aren't fields. They're things that make space happen.
Oh, I mean, when we kind of conceptualize that of we be living in hologram land.
Well, the space that you see is simulated by your mind to some measure, is what that implies. I'm not even the one that came up with this. This is purely special relativity.
I need to still review that. I've been listening on some things. I need to actually start playing around with those equations and everything, just because it's it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in, but
What you want to look at it is frame it as what are the suppositions that are being made, what information is required to get to the conclusion, and the argument I'm making is essentially that delta T and delta D with regards to time dilation and length contraction are determined by V and C.
so
Or V
volume
is-
the speed of light, or
V is the velocity of the thing
Okay.
that is being perceived to undergo the effects of special relativity. Usually in a model, it's a train. But you could use anything. It's just
and that's where the vectors come in, because its force is going to be velocity times in mass times direction.
the key is to see the light as more fundamental than what is emerging from it, right? The space and time perception.
I'm still trying to work on some of the
Well, is it
geophysics.
reasonable to think that our consciousness has access to relativistic effects?
Yeah,
Why?
because we here,
That doesn't mean we have access to relativistic effects.
we're being affected by them.
How do you know? That's a
because
terrible. That's probably the worst argument I've heard you make, and that's saying a lot. I'm just teasing.
well, no,
I didn't mean to
it's,
put you on the
no. It's I mean that's just my base reaction, because it's like, okay, well, if relativity is going to be a thing, and we are here, and
It's
did you
not
say
about relativity
Did you
being a
say
thing.
consciousness or us?
We haven't even got to
Okay.
consciousness. We haven't got to
Okay.
consciousness yet because there's two definitions of it. There's actually four definitions of it. It's not good. It's be horrible when we actually have to get into talking about consciousness. But the point is that there's something pre-consciousness in this model, which is these shapes.
Okay.
And the shapes are pre-space temporal. And how do we know that?
They were here before us.
Because they can subsist in the absence of space-time. Mass can exist without space-time. That's your reminder. So mass is always there, but space-time isn't.
Is it?
Well, sure. That's why you have your, remember, CMB is being precipitated through gravitational pressure, meaning it has to have a lot of mass, right?
Well, could it be energy, or well, I mean,
Mass and energy have an equivalence according to E equals mc squared. I actually want to ask that about that. Like, does that occur anywhere?
See that's the thing. That's the thing. Because if at some point where you're going through any type of a cyclic cosmology, or people want to say it's like, well, the Big Bang was the origin point, even if that's just the extruding thing, is mass maintained as mass, or is it just converted into an extraordinarily hot soup of light and particle geodesic?
Why can't
I
it
don't
be
even
hot?
know.
Why can't it be hot?
It's
Because it would be
doesn't
giving
it
off
break
light.
down once it
It
hits
would be
like
giving
the
off light
Planck
if it was
temperature?
hot. It would be giving off light if it was
Well,
hot.
doesn't it just become light? I don't even know what happens at freaking 10 to the 44 Kelvin. That's
Well, with that a question aside, it would be giving off light if it got hot. Thermal luminescence. Hello. We already know all these properties.
it's well, okay. I guess it could be some form of a plasma or strange matter or something. Okay, no, that's fair.
It's
And
mass
even
in the absence of space-time. The unlit regions of the universe are mass in the absence of space-time under sufficient pressure to create the cosmic background, right? And there has to be a lot of it because the new stars are created all the time, which creates a space-time. That's the connection. And so the connection to us is that our consciousness, what we call consciousness, is made of light crystal.
so
I mean, isn't that Plato's cave at the end of the day? Because it's like, how do you fix the cave problem? Well, you shine a light into it so that it knocks off of every single surface to light the whole thing up with mirrors. It's a metaphor for how the consciousness is made in the body. Just like the light can never escape, just totally internally refracted, and it creates this 3+1 dimensional surface, which I attempted to illustrate in this diagram here, which I'll bring back up. Woohoo! There we go. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. So the answer to why we should have access to the effects of special relativity is because our material substance is a light crystal.
So we're back to fractals.
No, we're at material substance is a light crystal. Now, if you want to go to fractals, you got to make another assumption.
Okay.
Which is?
That it's resonating within the fractals or between the fractals. See, I'm just picturing these two vinyl record players and stuff, and you got a bunch of light going off in between it, and somehow we just kind of come out of it there. That's I don't know. Is it? That's not a correct mimetic or model or anything, but I don't know. It sounds kind of cool. And I saw the laser
Does
etching
Thad's
something.
thing predict the speed of light?
Yeah.
Is the speed of light derivative of Thad's thing?
I don't know.
You're lying.
Oh, okay. Well, the Planck mass and the Planck. Okay, we already went over this. Yeah.
Is a derivative of Thad's thing.
That's too many derivatives for me to keep track of with my current level of attention.
Okay, so it's Planck length and time, right? So let's go through the logic. We've got hyperbolic figure 8 complement predicts the Planck length and time, which predicts the speed of light.
Yes.
Which predicts space-time. Understand? So you have 3 levels of emergence starting from the HF8 complement. What?
I'm looking. I'm looking at the diagram. I'm seeing.
Mm.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
so people are always like, well, what's a human? It's like apex hyperbolic figure 8 animated flesh blob. Duh.
I really think the microtubules really help us just maintain some form of harmonic resonance. If it's running through all the cells and everything, I have no idea if in Star Wars George Lucas was like, oh, there's these little things we're gonna call them midichlorians, and then try to make folks think that, oh, you're a force wielder if you have this. I have no idea if he was listening to any or reading any of Sir Roger Penrose's like The Emperor's New Mind or something like that. But I don't know. It kind of sounds like, okay, if we was light crystals, then perhaps a structure like that. My I don't know. I keep on going back to. I feel like it's got something to do with neutrinos, and the neutrinos would also probably explain a lot of the non-illuminated matter and stuff that we're trying to account for as well. Just because if it's got to go somewhere, even if it's so freaking small, and it also happens to penetrate through the. I really got this. I think I told you this the other day. Is I remember back like 15, 20 years ago, they were showing something. We measured like 6 neutrinos at this place underground with all this big tank of water and stuff. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I saw a more recent thing with one of the newer experiments. And it's like, all right, you can literally see the sun via its measurement. It's just like constantly bombarding with neutrinos. I'm like, I don't know, is that moving the water wheel of what we may know as time itself there? I don't know. It's coming from a star. It might actually have some mass. It might be going somewhere. And I haven't tried to break it down. It's just mind is loaded with things and I often get distracted.
Mm-hmm. I understand. So I've got it screen shared here. I'll attempt to show my. Oh wow, this is bad. I cannot draw a heart free hand, apparently. It's like beyond me right now. So I'm thinking this would be the shorthand for the hyperbolic figure 8. Not compliment. I wow, that's bad. Anyway, yeah, so that, and then that implies the Planck length and time, right? I don't want to write the whole thing out.
No, it's slowly catching up. I mean, if it was a hard, you'd probably also have some charge and stuff to it.
Think of it as emergence modeled through models, right? So it's not clear to me how we get here using what I'm familiar with, which is 100% a Euclidean paradigm from calculus and such. So this is sort of where I start, but basically it seems like at the very least the hyperbolic not as well defined.
See, I tend to think, at least for humanity itself, it's, again, maybe just being lucky going through so many iterations of universe, and the sheer fact that you happen to have a star of a particular intensity, the Earth, which happens to go through a number of phases that happen to have a lot of water, that also happen to have a moon that a number of years ago was a lot closer, adding an additional gravitational force, constantly churning, almost kind of like a butter mill or something like that, like a butter churn, just constantly doing that for millions of years. It's like, it seems like a pretty good way if you're going to try to create life as we know it to get there, especially if you're going to add in just the radiation from the sun itself. It's a good way to make human soup.
I'm completely lost.
I'm going to your photonic model of the creation of life.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I'm saying we were really lucky with a number of different factors, because, like, well, how could we do this? It's like, okay, if you have a star of a very particular luminosity, you have us within a very particular temperature range, you happen to have different nucleotides and a lot of water, and then you have a body that's just constantly pulling the tides and just churning and churning. That seems like the best way to get life as we know it to get started. And then,
wow.
And then you kind of
Do you have
run
any
into
idea how controversial that's been?
I
appreciate very much your
endorsement. But
I respect your opinion.
No,
but
Jen,
okay,
it's
that's
literally
actually giving me cognitive dissonance right now that you accept that.
No. But well, here's the thing, because also mimetically, it's like, all right, God said, "Let there be light," and God created us. It's like, okay, there's light. We were created. Doesn't really seem to be contradictory to a lot of the major religions if you take it that way. If you're trying to explain that to people thousands of years ago, what are you going to say? Well, due to the photonic or the quantum entanglement of this, and all these elements, it's like, God said, "Let there be light," and he created man. Okay.
Lost again.
I'm just saying that it also doesn't, at least in my opinion, again, perhaps it's blasphemous, I apologize for that, doesn't really seem to contradict a lot of scripture.
What, this stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's not what you'd expect. You'd expect a more revelation on this level to be more clarifying all the other religions and showing the commonalities rather than disproving and sort of maybe showing why a categorical disproof of certain notions doesn't make sense, because the information that you care about is actually meta information to some degree. It's like metadata on the original set. I shouldn't have said meta information. It's going to be confusing. Okay, so here's the argument, and then you get C from this, right?
Twinkling of the time, yeah.
And then that's where you get distance and time.
Well, I mean, those are two of the fundamental, like time seems to be the smallest articulation, and length comes after charge in the mass boundary, and then charge, and then it goes length and temperature.
You've got 50 million thoughts in your head. They're like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner right now. You don't want to be trying to yoke your current understanding to this. You need a fresh start. That's why we start with it. Empty page, and then I draw it on. It's meant to be fresh start. It's a series of logical steps. If the prime mover is the hyperbolic figure 8 knot complement, the second mover is the primary length and the primary time, correct? The Planck time and length. They are the primary emergent, whatever the hell you want to call them, arising.
As far as what we would consider colloquially as space time.
Nope, we're not at space time yet. We're at minimal. We're at the Planck length and Planck time. That's not space time.
Okay.
But you understand you can use that, according to Thad, you can use that to derive the Planck length and time. Right?
Okay.
Are you agreeing with me or no?
I just know in Thad's explanation that the boundaries, the internal, the cyclic.
This is not about the explanation. I'm asking you to qualify the following statement. Using Thad's model, we can derive the Planck length and time. I didn't think this would be controversial. Yes, you can, right? And you can divide the Planck length by the Planck time to get the speed of light, right?
Yes.
So that means that 1 leads to 2 leads to 3. And then from the speed of light, based on the precepts of special relativity, delta x and delta p, which I argue are what we call space and time, emergent from that.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, that's all that's the logic of it. It's basically saying that for the people who want to say that, who want to argue for physicalism, well, you're arguing that the final level is the reality. You're saying there's nothing but this, and that this is the absolute truth because you're invoking it as a metaphysical absolute vis-a-vis this physicalism nonsense. So yeah, that's a basic argument. The understanding that the minimum length and minimum time and what we experience as space and time, that's mediated by light.
So we with fractals?
This is nothing. We're not even at fractals yet.
Okay.
This actually isn't an argument for a fractal. You understand you have to go pretty far to get to a fractal, just given the fact that we aren't really like, where's the fractal in the human body? Tell me about the human body fractals, if it's so much determined by fractals.
Microtubules.
Okay. How can you establish that they're fractals?
Because of their alignment there. It's basically, it's a geodesic.
So geodesics are fractals? Is that definitional? Or, because I tried to look this up and I had a hard time finding anything that wasn't the original Mandelbrot paper. I was blown away.
Well, is it really well? Well, you end up going back to like the alpha Feigenbaum, was it that number and everything? It's basically the bifurcation, or it's the way that, but it was basically, it was the dilogarithmic, the partitioning of basically most things that we're observing there. So it's like the Mandelbrot set is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, it's fine. I was listening. I'm interested. I just changed the screen.
I think that's why I'm like, I don't really think we're that far off. How do we get to it? That's why I'm the crazy person out here to say things that other more sensible people may not say, to maybe just spur a little bit more thought and everything, and just kind of tweak the world and do a little bit there. And so the other smart people I'm around can just kind of think about it and maybe come up with something better if I can contribute in a way and try to minimize the cognitive dissonance that I create, which I often fail at. Hey, I think I'm doing my job. That's what I got. But speaking of that, I actually got to run because I got work and stuff in the morning. So, but
this is fun. I was just about to demonstrate my thing, and I'll just do it real quick before I head out. And yeah, thanks for the contribution, and hopefully that was reasonably enlightening.
No. The more I learn and everything. Every once in a while, fairly often, it makes my head hurt. But after a while, after it gets pounded into me, eventually I feel like my brain might actually be growing a few more neurons. So maybe that's a good thing. But thank you for having me on, Jen. Hope to have you on again soon. And I love doing our chats.
Yeah, that was an awesome show. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Peace out, Jen. Catch you all later.
Effluent says a crystal's a fractal. Is it? – Mark Smith asks, is there no end to space? Well, again, there's two levels of all these things, right? There's two levels of time. There's, I would say, start with time, where we all started a certain time. Therefore, there must be an end time if there was a beginning. And since time and space are interconnected through light, then space, for us, the space that comprises our solar system, also had a beginning. That's how I would reason that out. All right. Let me just make sure I don't lose track of this question here. Talking about all sorts of crazy stuff in the chat. It's distracting here. I'm not going to be entertaining the notion of the speed of light being not a constant, because that's just not where is worthwhile to focus right now. So back to this, is there no end to space? So it's kind of a question of what do we even mean by that? I just wanted to do this one diagram real quick and I'll close this, but it's not really accurate to understand the sun rays as these planar rays that they like to use. In a way, to think of it as a pie, maybe. And each planet gets a certain piece of the pie based on its attributes. It's a little bit more like don't want to spend too much time doodling here, but having an intuition for how the waves work. It's not too easy for me. Maybe some people have this better intuition for this than me. If so, good for you. But just very basically, I would say the Earth is hot. And so there's some evaporation. And it's going away from the surface. And without the moon, it would just be purely going away forever because there's nothing to slow it down once it's in space. Space is, we observe it to have a low thermal energy. But if something already has thermal energy, there's also not much in space to diminish it. What the moon does is alter this normally radial velocity slightly, ever so slightly, in that direction. And it seems odd that something as small as the moon could... I'm just trying to account for why people don't agree with this demonstration. Either just not familiar with it or whatever. But it's... could argue, well, the moon's only a very small percentage of the total steradians, which is 3D angles or whatever, 2D angles covering. So therefore, it's not actually going to be responsible for much. But remember, the space around the moon, I don't want to say the E word, so now it's going to trigger everybody, but that's not absorbing anything. So it's really the moon is the sole thing pretty much that has the ability to reflect anything. And so it generates another field, which is also going to be in a geodesic array. It's going to be expanding in a circular array, just like with Earth. So I'll do it in a different color. I have no idea where this would happen, but there would be a point where it would be stable. And the reason we know there's got to be a stable point is because we have an atmosphere. And that's what the debate sort of didn't quite resolve, was why all the atmosphere doesn't evaporate. Yeah, there is something to... You can't just say gravity. It's actually not accurate to say gravity. No, it's a static light field would be the accurate term. Did I have time to go through all this on the debate? Well, yeah, but I was worried that if I did too good of a job, they wouldn't want me to come back. So sort of had to balance that out. Snowflakes on the arm of a fractal, and that's how we experience dimensions? How poetic. I don't know if there's any more questions or anything. Oh, but here's another example of something. I don't know if we talked about it that much, but just accounting for why the planet spins on one axis. And why are all the planets in almost a disk array? Do we have a reason for that? I'm not sure. I realized I didn't answer the question about whether there's a boundary to space. So you could argue there is a boundary to the space-time. I would agree there is a boundary to the space-time locally, and it's the size of the volume swept out by the planets. And then you could argue, well, there's also an absolute time because it's just the total created time minus the overlaps in the times, right? So if a star got created 5 billion years ago and then we got created 4.5 billion years ago, well, we just say, okay, there's 0.5 billion years between those events, and we can extrapolate the total universe must be infinity years old. Okay, well, that's, you could say, not wrong, but then you have the infinite regress problem, which I argue is incoherent. So sure, because there's no beginning of time, that would be a break in the physical laws. There is no beginning of space either, because there's no beginning, there's no end, and therefore it's unbounded. So I would say space is unbounded. And if you expect a boundary to space, you can look for one and it's hard to find one. Then you could argue, is there a boundary to anything? Well, if there is, maybe there's a boundary to space-time. And you can think of it as a temporal bubble. And that's why we can observe a particular profile of a nuclear decay, which is convergent, very small delta for all planets in the solar system. Part of my uncreated universe model, which posits that stars and planets are created in a single event, which instantiates the space-time event, locality, space-temporality, and your trivial ether field, corresponding to the total mass of the space-time event, which then evolves within its own crystal lattice, if you will. Yeah, it's funny because Bubblegum just said, that's still just measurement. I don't know if you know this, but my theory is literally called the measurement limit. So you're saying that like it's a bad thing, bud. I feel like I baited you into saying the name of my theory. I just won on that one. So I don't think there's any problem with an infinite and an extant universe that has never not existed. Sure. I had a quote, and I forget who said it. I wish I'd written it down, but it was a mathematician or interested in physics. Not sure we're on that scale, but their opinion was that if you allow infinities to be defined within a system, that creates problems. But if you define an infinity as something a system can access, i.e. axiomatic, i.e. there's only just one flavor, we can't derive meaningful other flavors, that person said that seemed to be okay. Yeah, Mark Smith says all bubbles surrounded by infinite space. Again, is it really infinite space? Because we can actually measure the size of the observable universe. That's where I get the 14-dimensional universe, remember? Remember? 42 orders of linear magnitude in the universe, 14 energetic dimensions, trivial light crystal, right? So is that infinite space? We can't know what's in the unobservable universe. That's part of the name. It'd be dishonest to say we did. Or we could say it's the, purview of the theist. If I didn't identify so strongly with that title. Yeah, so hopefully that clears things up for people. No problem with an infinite universe that has never not existed. Sounds great to me. It's really, to me, the only thing that makes any sense. All right, I see people are really starting to get poetic in the chat, so we'll wrap it up and look forward to the next one. See you all next Sunday, if not sooner.
Yeah, that's just so to say, a worthless opinion of.
It's so important that she can't be told, she won't be told that it's wrong. And
bringing it back to Church of Entropy and her attack dog Gandalf the White.
Why don't you learn to shut up and fuck your goddamn logic?
they control the media, and the media is capable of making the sheeple believe in anything.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, we've had these streams, and I've been doing with Church of Entropy, and she's been bringing on new people, and like we did those streams on like stream etiquette. We walked through like the technology.
I have like very strongly negative opinions of the kind of Brundle clique.
Is she trying to garner herself cult prestige by associating herself with a retard?